Okay, so I see people already putting their names and location on the chat box, but I mean, to facilitate this this networking, you have to put your name, what you do, and where you are, you know, so the people will network with you better. So what you do could be, so please put your name, what you do, and where you are. Thank you. All right, so this is 2:36 p.m. and it's a good time to kick off. Once again, thank you everyone for making it on time. My name is Chinedu Albert and I am a lawyer and a policy consultant. I'm a senior associate at the firm, a law and consulting firm headquartered in Abuja. But today it's about Africa policy conversations and the Abia agenda setting meeting that you are here for. So welcome once more. And to kickstart this show, I would love to invite Chinenyo Wanaka, the co-founder and co-convener of the Africa Policy Conversations, to tell us why we are here. And when I come back, I will introduce the first panel. So engage your emoticons, your reactions panel, and give Chinenye a round of applause, a virtual round of applause as she turns on the microphone to give us a hint as to why we are here this afternoon. Please turn on your microphone, Chinenye.
Okay, so I feel a little bit ambushed because I wasn't expecting to speak as soon as the beginning of the program, but I really want to thank and I hope we're recording. We started recording this because okay, awesome. So I really want to thank our distinguished guests for making our time to join us for this very important agenda setting conversation. Governance, governance is something that is a very big challenge and a big opportunity in Africa, in Nigeria. Governance and leadership, especially as young people, I'm sure we're all young people on this call, and we all care about good governance, and we all care about having effective policies, government policies that catalyze growth, that catalyze innovation, productivity. We all know that there's a lot of hardship in the land, and inflation, cost of living is going up, and we're all looking for solutions. And so some of these conversations that we curate is to be able to find lasting solutions and innovative solutions to some of the pressing challenges affecting our nation and our continent as a whole. So just to introduce myself, my name is Chine Wanaka, like Albert mentioned, and I'm the co-founder and convener of Africa Policy Conversations. Africa Policy Conversations is a non-profit, and we're registered in Nigeria, in South Africa, and in the US. And the reason why Africa Policy came about is because I was actually doing a program at the Harvard Kennedy School in 2019, and I had to work on policy. And I realized at the time, because I had chosen intellectual property, I realized that there was no intellectual property policy in Nigeria. And as you all know, Nigeria has a very robust creative industry. In fact, one or two of the speakers here are in the fashion industry. Fashion is one of the creative industries or sectors. We also have other sectors that are powered by intellectual property, like technology, innovation. So you have a lot of tech founders, tech startups, unicorns coming out of Nigeria. You have Afrobeats, you have the music industry. Everyone around the world, our artists are selling out stadiums and doing innovative things. So the point is that, in 2019, we realized that there was no IP policy. And we then, as deconstructing that problem, realized that we don't even have platforms where young people, citizens can engage with their policymakers to make recommendations, to co-create solutions to pressing problems. And so that's how Africa Policy Conversations came about. A group of young people who are passionate about change, who are passionate about development, coming together to say, we want to be part of the solution. We don't want to just sit down on social media and just be pressing phone and complaining and, no, we want to be part of solving the problems. And this organization has been around for the past 5 years. And we've been doing a lot of convenings, both in Nigeria, in the US, in the UK, in South Africa, But however, this year we said we want to deepen our impact on the grassroots. The fact that you've had protests happening in this country, across the country, you have people feeling hopeless, people jackpine, and we said we want to talk more about issues that concern the grassroots. And so we launched our grassroots campaign, advocacy campaign, and town halls. And we had a town hall meeting in Lagos. That was about a month or two ago. We had it in Yaba, Lagos, where we had councillors, we had lawmakers, the State House of Assembly members, we had even Federal House of Assembly members representing places like Surulere, Lagos Island, and others. And the whole idea was to bring citizens close to their people in a town hall setting, not just big, elaborate conferences where people cannot really communicate. But we said, no, let's come together, let's discuss problems, but not stop at discussing problems, but let's recommend solutions. And so that's how Africa Policy Conversations, started. And now we're very, very, very happy to bring this conversation to Abia State. Abia State has a lot of important places. I mean, growing up, in fact, my parents, I wasn't born in Aba, but some of my siblings were born in Aba. My parents lived in Aba for some time. I was born in Enugu, although I'm from Imo State. But Aba is a place that anybody in Nigeria, anywhere you are, you know about Aba, depending on what line of business you are in. It's a strong economy, it's a strong contributor to our economy. The citizens are very industrious, very innovative. We have a very progressive governor in Abia State. And really, for the Southeast, Abia State is a place that we have hopes for. We have high hopes for Abia State. We believe that Abia State can be a pillar, for the rest of the country. And so that's why we're here to have this conversation. So I'm really excited to meet each and every one of you. It's not a one-off conversation. This is just the beginning of an ongoing conversation. And these are conversations will definitely lead to action. So thank you so much, and looking forward to listening to you all.
Thank you, Chinenye, for that lovely welcome of opening speech. Please use your emojis and give Chinenye a virtual round of applause. Yes, thank you, everyone. So once more, my name is Chinedu Albert. I am a lawyer and a policy consultant here at the FEMA headquartered in Abuja, Nigeria. And I will be your moderator for today's session. And just like Chinenye mentioned, thank you to the distinguished guests who have honored our invitation to speak at this webinar today, which is the first of many. It's going to be a series of conversation, and if you listen closely to the opening speech, Africa Policy Conversations is really a policy think tank made up of young professionals, and it shows in how we create our events. For example, today, most of the speakers we're going to listen to today are young people who are not just complaining about the problems, but who are part of the solution. People who are, captains of industries, who are policy heads, and winning in whatever sector they find themselves. We have here one of the youngest deputy local government chairman in Nigeria. His name is Jubilee Ezendo. He emerged deputy chairman of Umunochi local government in Abia State. I believe at the age of 25. Yeah. So, and there are all that you're going to meet these amazing people when I introduce them. So, yes, today we have about 4 panels lined up for you. And what is the conversation really about? Abia State is a crown jewel of Nigeria. It used to be a massive industrial complex. You know, I don't want to talk about what it is now, but I want us to cast a mind to what it was and what it potentially can be. And also congratulations to Abba for organizing the Abba Fashion Show. It was a buzz on social media, and if anyone here was part of the organizers, a big thumbs up. Congratulations. It's beautiful. Abba fashion industry is going global, and I cannot wait to see all that it can be. So just going to the first panel, which is strengthening local governance. I crave indulgence to use your emojis. Use it liberally, please, while I introduce our esteemed speakers, panel speakers. The first person here is Honorable Njoko Chidebere Christian. He's a councillor representing Amasa, Ward 5. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Amasa,
Yes,
Ward
yes,
5.
you pronounced it.
In Osisiomangwa Legislative Council, Honorable Njoko has extensive experience in local governance and is committed to enhancing community engagement and accountability within local governments. Please, a virtual round of applause for Honorable Njoko Chidebere Christian. And Sai, if you're here, just turn on your microphone and just say hello to everyone.
Hello, good day to everyone. Hello, good day to everyone.
Oh, so sorry. Could you kindly take that again?
Hello, good day to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. All
You're
right.
welcome.
If you can indulge us, please, and turn on your video so that your camera so everyone can see you. All right, thank you. So before I introduce the other guests, I want to also let you know that this panel is going to look critically at strengthening local governance. Some of you might be aware in July of this year, the Supreme Court highlighting the clear-cut powers between the state government and the local government, allowing local governments to take control of their resources without having the local government, the state governors dish it out as and what this has translated to is financial autonomy for local government, just as the Nigerian Constitution intended. This panel is going to look at it critically. In practice, how has local governments fared with this autonomy and other ways that the local government can be strengthened, because really grassroots is where it is. Governance at the grassroots is critical because at that stage, if we get it right, real development will, can happen. Development does not just start in Abuja and Lagos. It also starts at the grassroots level, and that is why we're having this conversation. All right, so the next person I'm going to invite is Kelechi Imo. He's a skilled diplomat and the founder of the Transformative Justice and Development Network. Kelechi has a strong background in policy advocacy and development initiatives aimed at improving governance and community resilience. So if you're with us, Kelechi, could you kindly turn on your microphone and say hello to everyone? And
Hi,
your video,
everyone.
please.
It's good to be here.
All right, thank you so much, Kelechi, for joining us. Next person is, I just received the information that Kelechi Imo is at the airport, yet, he said nothing would stop him from joining us to contributing to this conversation. Africa Policy Conversations is incredibly grateful to you, sir. Thank you. The next person is, the next person on our list is Ezechim Kanayo, Izindu Jubilee. He recently served as the executive deputy chairman of Umunochi local government. And he got his position at 25, I believe. He's going to clarify if I'm wrong. So Jubilee brings a diverse background in public service, media, and entrepreneurship, focusing on leveraging technology for improved governance. Jubilee, if you're with us, could you kindly, yes, I saw him. He was one of the first people who joined at exactly 2:30. So please turn on your microphone and say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ezechim Nayo, Izindu Jubilee. I know Ezechim Nayo as a word can be such a mouthful, but I forgive you, moderator. You can call me Izindu or Jubilee for short. Yeah, so in 2020, I contested and won for the position of deputy chairmanship for Umunochi local government. Served for 2 years, ended in 2022. And at that point, I believe I was the elected youngest. I think I'm the youngest elected executive in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that speaks to how receptive Abia State as a state is to young people actively playing in governance. I see people like Kelechi Mona, my friend, Joko, and Obina here. You know, these are friends. These are my friends. These are people I've worked with for years. And we championed the Not Too Young to Run movement in Abia State together. And so that's position. PO, my friend, Promise Uzoma, Koki are supposed to be here. So I wasn't just the only young person, but I was the youngest. And I believe Not Too Young to Run as a movement was very massively successful in Abia State. So thank you. Happy to be here and looking forward to contributing meaningfully.
We are so glad that you're with us today. So thank you so much, Jubilee. All right, the last but not the least on our list is Comrade Koki L. Mwachuku. He is the former SUG Director of Transport and NANS JCC Chairman. An advocate for youth engagement in governance and effective collaboration between citizens and local governments. If you are here, Comrade, could you kindly turn on your microphone and video and camera and say hello to everyone? Okay. Okay, so he's not here with us. All right, so let us get to the, to the questions I have. Just give me a moment.
Okay, while he's doing that, I just wanted to come in really quickly and just say that one other thing that we do at Africa Policy Conversations is we also try to bridge the gap between organizations, leaders, policymakers at the state level, at the subnational level, and also at the federal level. So I wear multiple hats. So one of the hats that I wear is I'm the co-chair of the advisory board of the Nigerian Youth Futures Fund. So the Nigerian Youth Futures Fund is an innovative fund. Is about a $6 million fund seeded by Ford Foundation, MacArthur Foundation, and Luminate. And every year, the organization gives out grants to youth-led organizations across the country. So the fund is called NYFF for short. We actually give out grants to youth-led organizations. And I think I'm the only person from the Southeast who is on the board, and I'm also the co-chair. And it always bothers me when I see that we don't have a lot of organizations from the Southeast actually being beneficiaries of these grants. I've complained several times, and sometimes they say, oh, people in the Southeast, they don't want to apply, or, but I always say there's a communication gap, because I'm sure that if people in the Southeast knew that there's funding available, we have a lot of people doing impactful work. So it's just really nice to hear you talk about Not Too Young to Run, because like one of the organizations, Yaga Africa, they're one of our partners as well. Samson Utodo, we've done a couple of things together. We're still planning to do more, but it would be nice to see more of the people in the Southeast have a voice at the national level too as well, campaigning for issues, advocating for issues that affect us as a region. So that's just one of the things I also wanted to say. And then finally, we recently started doing some work trying to support policy coordination in the country. So I don't know if you all know, there's an office that was created, which is a special advisor to the president on policy coordination. And part of the things is also being able to channel the grievances, the pain points of citizens at the grassroots level to bridge the gap with those who are at the federal level. So I just wanted to introduce these 2 points as well, to say that we're also here to do other things beyond having conversations. We also want to see how we can make sure that there's meaningful impact. There's also investments and opportunities being channeled to the Southeast and to young people, especially in the Southeast, especially in Abia State. So thank you. So I'm sure you have your questions now. Over to you, Albert.
Yes, I have my questions now. Thank you so much, Chinenye, for that. Basically, Chinenye is saying that Africa Policy Conversations does not just host these dialogues, so that we will keep them in our archives of dialogues. We are connected. Not only are we in Abuja, Nigeria, we are also, we have affiliations with people who, who make decisions. We're partnered with very key ministries, departments, and agencies, and we are the heart of policy development in Nigeria. So when we have these conversations, best believe that we are channeling it to critical stakeholders who should be aware of the outcomes of dialogues like this. Yes. So I have questions, to pose to the wonderful panelists. And I'm going to start with Honorable Njoko. Now, my question is, with the Supreme Court judgment that has impacted financial autonomy for local governments, now, how has this autonomy impacted governance in Abia State so far? This question is for you, Honorable Njoko.
Okay, thank you very much. For those that are just coming in, I am Honorable Njoko Chidebere, the councillor representing Amasa Ward 5 in Osiomangwa Legislative Council. What we are talking about, this autonomy now, local government autonomy, it has positive effects in the local government in the sense that it will now help the local government to approve projects without state government interference. They will have to manage their own finances, collect revenues, allocate resources without waiting for state government to tell them what to do and what not to do. They'll now be able to handle some projects on their own, like some healthcare, some building health centers, even construction of some roads. Because before now, the local government had limited funds, limited projects that they can decide on their own to do. For example, currently now, we are working on 2025 projects. It's now the councillors that approves the local government projects. As at last year, after doing the projects from the budgets from the local government, you take it to the House of Assembly to approve. But now, the local governments do their own projects, give it to the councillors to approve. And the councillors now has inputs, because they want, the ones at the grassroots, they know what exactly they need the communities need. So they put the projects there, and after the budget and planning departments do their thing, the councillors are now the ones to approve the projects, no more the State House of Assembly. And now they control the funds of the local government. Once it's coming from the federal, of the local government now has full control of their funds, of their resources. They decide what to do with their money. They implement, they take on projects that will positively affect the communities. So I think in these are some areas where the local government autonomy is really, really, really positively affecting the local government output. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Christian. Essentially, your sense of autonomy is affording local governments the opportunity to pioneer and sustain critical infrastructure development. Do you have anything else to add to these, Mr. Jubilee? You were a one-time executive deputy chairman of Umunoji. Could you add context to this? How has this autonomy, how has local government, especially in Abia State, fared in the wake of this autonomy?
All right, so this is a very new law, and I don't know. It's first and foremost we have to celebrate this new law. As someone that served in the local government, I can't begin to put in words how happy I was when I had.
Sorry, Jubilee, is it possible for you to turn on your camera so we see you?
I'm sorry about that. I may not be able to turn on my camera. I'm in a place that I may not be able to do that.
All right, it's okay. Please proceed.
Yeah, so I was saying, as someone that served once in local government for 2 years, I can't begin to put into words how happy I was to. I followed the whole process, and when it finally became law that the local government is autonomous financially, I was very, very happy. I sort of also wish that this happened in my time. So, Honorable Njoko, you guys are the lucky bunch. So, but what this means, to add context to what he's saying, there used to be a process through which money got to the local government. And that process was that every state had a joint account, right? So when money got to local government, they were expected usually to either remit to the joint account and then have a meeting where local government chairmen have to go to the state government, and then they make deliberations on how all the monies that has been collected into the state joint account is used at the local government levels. And so every single project the local government chairman or deputy chairman or this administration had to take was dependent on approval by whoever was in charge of the joint accounts. Usually you had a commissioner for local government affairs, which to me always felt unnecessary. Why? It's like having a minister for state government. But yeah, at the state government, you had the commissioner for local government affairs. And then in some cases, the governor had the right to appoint someone else who was not even the commissioner to oversee the activities of the joint account. So it was a very big issue. It was a conundrum because it meant that as leaders and administrators of the local government at the local government level, you could not embark on projects that you really had in mind because there were always limitations to the amount of funding you could access and all that. And in some cases, and this is beyond Abia State, the state government always had their own plans for the money. Sometimes you as a local government chairman or deputy, you could have a direction you want to go with the development of your local government, and the state government has a different direction altogether. And that becomes a problem because if you do not align, what are the chances that you get enough funding for the vision you've been elected into power for? So this is cutting edge. It is tremendous, and I'm looking forward to seeing that the current leaders at the local government level across Abia State can leverage this to do some of those to drive development in the way that we could not. because there's nothing that is more painful than coming into a government seat with such huge visions for your people, and then realizing that all of a sudden you may not be able to deliver some of these dividends as much as you would because of the limitation of funding, right? And so it was a big setback, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they will achieve. I'm praying for them. I support them,
I want to
and
ask a question. Sorry to put you on the spot. Would you consider running again for office?
yes,
Okay.
honestly. So I'm very passionate about local government administration. I think the coordinator said something. One thing I tried to do when I was the deputy chairman was to drive technology down to the grassroots, right? I wanted to see that more children at the local government level in the rural communities got used to performing, their usual tasks, but with technological improvements to them. Many of them, if you go to, for my village, for instance, many of them do not know what a modern phone looks like. You have many of them who, they live in a different world, if I can put it that way. You're living in a different world, and they live in a different world. What engages you, they have no idea how to access. They don't have no idea how to use the phones. They have no idea how to, acquire. Okay, before even we start talking about acquiring technology skills, they have no idea these technology skills are in existence. And you have millions and millions of Nigerians who live in rural communities who, at this point in 2024, do not know how to use a phone to either, make their businesses smoother, or to make education easier, or to make whatever craft and skill they have more visible. So it was something I was really passionate about. But then when you are limited by funding, some of the major day-to-day routine of, responsibilities of government, have not even been quite handled. And then you're bringing in this funny American digital technology thing. So it was a problem pushing that. In my tenure, I trained about 300 young people. About 200 of them came from my local government and 200 from all across Abia State. I equipped them with skills in digital media, because that's my sphere, that's my field. Equipped 300 of them with skills in digital media. Also linked many of them up to the Ministry of Information there, and they were employed, right? Did so many things in that area, but every single thing I did in this direction, I funded. I sought for the funds, and most of that funding came from my pocket. And I know I would have done a lot more than 300. My plan was to do 3,000 across 2 years, but I could only do 300. So, but looking back at those 300 students, right now as I'm talking to you, 200 of them are in the universities. Most of them are paying their tuition fees from the skills they acquired through those trainings. Rural kids in universities wrote their JAMB, are paying their tuition fees with these skills. So that shows you the efficacy and the power of driving technology and all other forms of development down to the grassroots. And I'm hoping that with this new financial autonomy,
yes,
thank you
so
very much.
thank you so much, Jubilee. In fact, what your response is a foreshadowing of the question I'm about to ask. In fact, you started already, but let's just say you gave us the problem statement. Now, the specific question flowing from that is, what innovative strategies? I've heard, one or two from what you've said, but what more innovative strategies can local governments leverage technology to improve service delivery and civic engagement? You've stated that so many people in these rural areas are cut off from technology. We don't know the statistics of smartphone access or broadband access. But what in your opinion, because you've been there, how do you think the current local governments in Abia State can leverage technology to improve service delivery and civic engagement?
All right, thank you very much for that question. First and foremost, I think we have to find ways to enhance what people in local governments, rural communities make money from, make their day-to-day living from, and that's agriculture, right? So if there's any area that we want to see innovation in, it's in agriculture. Let me give a background, an instance. In my local government, I think we have some of the largest cashew plantations in Nigeria. You know, you can go acres and acres of lands of cashew, you know, and, you know, we are not, my people, they don't make as much money from these plantations as they should. The collection to sales process is very, very poor, right? You have this forest of cashews that should be gold for my people, and yet many of them don't know how to go about it. They don't know how to leverage it. They don't know how to. I want to see more bespoke, if I can use that word, more bespoke strategies designed for the rural communities to enhance how much they can make from agriculture. For cassava communities, there are communities in my local government that are great with cassava. How do we make sure that they are making the most from cassava? How do we make sure that the process, the agricultural process, how do we bring in mechanization to rural communities? How do we make sure they are farming more lands? How do we introduce security infrastructure to protect them from herdsmen and all other incursions? How do we do all these things, right? Because in the absence of improvements in agriculture, we will be left with bringing in other skills that rural communities are not yet ready for. And that might be a lot. So for me, the first area I want to see innovation introduced into is agriculture. Agriculture. That's the first area. Then the second area, of course, is education, right? Most rural kids are, in fact, I'm looking for the word to put. Most rural kids are not educated. And even when you go to some of the schools that have been set up, rural schools, you find that the teachers are usually not available or on ground, or, you know, the students, you don't have the right educational infrastructure. Some of these places you go to this, and there are no desks, there are no chairs, you know, the blackboards are charcoal, you don't have exercise books for the kids and all that. A lot more work should be done to see that every little kid in rural communities in Nigeria have access to education. Have access to
All
education.
right.
And this is key.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so sorry to cut you off. We are far behind time, but thank you so much for the recommendations. Now I will move to you, Kelechi Imo. You founded Transformative Justice and Development Network. So I want you to tap into your extensive experience in policy advocacy and development initiatives to answer this question. So we all know that the sit at home is, now this is devoid of any political sentiments you may have. There is actual data to show that the sit at home enforced in Southeast has a debilitating effect on the economy. So my question to you, Kelechi, is what innovative strategies can be employed to mitigate, and I'm using this word carefully because some people will choose to, eradicate, but for now, let's just use mitigate the effects of the Monday sit-at-home disruptions on local economies and governance. Did you get that question, or do you want me to take it again?
Please take it again. I'm on transit. Take it again. I didn't get what you said finally.
All right. So I heard you are on your way to the airport. So massive gratitude, seriously. All right. So my
Not
question
the
is,
airport. I'm trying to locate where.
oh, okay. Yes. So what strategies can we employ to mitigate the effects of the sit at home in Abia State and other parts of Southeast, especially the disruptions caused to local economies and governance?
Okay. First, I must say one of the innovative ways that I think that we can adopt, which is a long-term approach, is reorientation at the grassroots level. Incidentally, the sit-at-home menace is not as strong we can have it in other states in Abia, especially Umuahia and its environs. The attitude towards sit at home is quite low. However, I think that in the long term, reorientation of our young people, especially at the grassroots level, because they are oftentimes the victim of this. That's on the long-term approach. That's on the long-term approach. In the short-term approach, I think that security agencies, stakeholders really, the local government chair, and everybody who is involved should partner with local vigilante. Because what I have observed in my experience, especially in Jos, I've just living for, I discovered that most of the arrests that are made, be it kidnapping, be it criminal elements, are done by the local vigilantes. And after they have captured these criminals, they hand them over to the police. So if, let's say, a local government like Umunochi decides, because I know that Umunochi has sometimes was a problem, if a local government like Umunochi has a law that, okay, on Mondays there should be no sit at home, markets should be able to open, it has to do with the effectiveness of the vigilante working hand in glove with the traditional rulers. If the vigilante and the traditional rulers are on the same page, because most of the time, what we find out is that the vigilante is doing a different thing. The traditional rulers are not in the same. In fact, they are not even aware. In fact, the vigilante are rebellious to the authorities. So, but when the traditional rulers, the vigilante, the local government chair, and all these critical stakeholders are on the same page with the society, I think the issue of sit at home will become minimalized. Okay, you know the issue of IPOB or Biafra comes with a lot of sentiments, but I think that for a start, working with these security agencies to identify those of them who are in continuous improving in this menace are checkmated and also arrested if need be. Um, because it is actually crippling the economy of these areas I rightly mentioned. So in the Southeast generally, we can see some improvements. We can see in any of these states where the governor himself had to go out market by market on a Monday to enforce the sit at home. These are extreme measures. But at the end of the day, it has to do with diplomacy, it has to do with negotiation, it has to do with orientation. If the young people of a particular area is aware, like for example, in Umuahia is such a very interesting place that we don't, these things don't bother us. Okay, we are the last. If you say okay, there should be sit at home now, and there's this seriousness for it. You say everybody will sit at home, to be frank. But then, in over the years, I have observed also that Umuahia is the least place that this sit at home rarely happens because we don't just listen. We are not performed at all. So I think that one of the ways to checkmate this thing is partnership within the security agencies because I have observed also that security agencies find it difficult to partner with each other. But if we can agree and partner with each and every one of them, we can secure that. Another way is this. Most of the time, schools are also affected. I think that starting up neighborhood schools for children in those localities, in order not to disrupt their calendar, is also a way of avoiding this menace affecting their educational calendar. I think that's just maybe you ask me a question of yeah, that's all.
Wow, thank you so much, Kelechi. I got, or let me not say the one thing, but I love the fact that you emphasize that sensitivity, being sensitive to people's policy should be adopted in approaching this. We should be, sensitive in our diplomacy and advocacy. All right, thank you. So as a follow-up question to you, Kelechi, what is your take? And this will require some constitutional amendment, but let's not go all legal. But what is your take on community policing? And I mean the legalization of community policing using vigilante groups, like making community police, bringing them to the power of, federal police, just like the
They
Amoteku
say
in the Southwest.
yeah, yeah. They say necessity is the mother of invention. The issue of state police, there are so many political undertones towards it. But some of us also believe that when the local vigilante are properly empowered, they are better equipped to identify who these hoodlums are because they live amongst us. We know everybody, okay? Ametokum, you mentioned in the West. I don't know how effective it is because if you understand how the Nigerian state operates, it does appear that sometimes things are one sided. However, I will support the issue of state police because we are in extreme times and we are really in difficult times. And if empowering our local vigilante, allowing them to carry serious arms and forming a group and putting them on the national scale of payment or whatever, it will go a long way to solve this problem. Where this problem is, where people are having their dissatisfaction is in the area of state governors using them as their own personal tools to either rig elections or intimidate. Thank God that we are talking about local government autonomy right now. If the local government autonomy, I'm just trying to, Abia, like you said, Abia is like it's like a litmus test. They just got in, and we'll see how effective their autonomy is. Okay, if the local government autonomy really works the way it is working in most of our minds, then the issue of state police should really come into effect effectively. Yes, into effect.
All right, thank you so much. So I'm afraid these are all the questions I can take. So
Can I come in? Sorry. Sorry, just because we're just talking about state police, there's just something, a quick question that I want to ask all our panelists, and they can just use like 1 minute to respond. Specifically, Honorable Njoko and Kelechi Imo as well. So as someone who we advise both local and international organizations and investors who want to invest in Nigeria, most times when you talk about the Southeast, there's this fear of insecurity, and most business people will not want to, even people from the Southeast find it difficult sometimes to even travel back to travel back home because of this fear of insecurity, unknown gunmen, and all that. I personally, there's a project I'm doing in my hometown in Imo, and I find that, the youthful, Southeast used to be known, or is still known as, a place where there's business, there's entrepreneurship. So now, when you hear about unknown gunmen, even drugs, I was in a meeting yesterday, someone was telling me about Ngurumiri, asking me that, is it really true that in the Southeast there's a lot of drug problem and all that? So my question for you all, because you are all leaders on this call, what can be done to salvage, one, the image of the Southeast as it relates to insecurity? And then the second part of that is, how can we ensure that our youth are not hopeless and resorting to drugs, and even the Igbo entrepreneurship model that we're known for, Igbo, this Iba boy that used to be very popular, like, oh, if you come,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, Honorable Njoko, I would want to say, to salvage this situation, the youth needs to be engaged with skills. I listened carefully to what Honorable Jubilee said about the training he had in his local government then. I do this kind of trainings in my area before now too. They need to be engaged. Most times, the few of them that are elites, few of them that are graduates, the politicians engage them with this monthly stipend to be their online war dogs. You don't teach them to have a skill. You don't get them employed. You make them your personal assistant, and at the end of every month, you give them money. You keep giving them money, and when you are out of office, they become nuisance to the society. They don't have what doing. Most of them believes being a PA to a politician is a profession. So most of them don't have what to do. Whenever that man refuses to give them money, they become nuisance. And most people in the rural areas don't have a skill. After primary or secondary schools, they are home looking for what to do. From there, they move into drugs, smoking, and they become thieves and armed robbers. So the youth at the local communities need to be engaged. Most of them don't have skills. They don't have what to do. They don't have where to learn, the money to the funds to learn these skills.
Can I ask about something
Yes.
about these skills? We've done projects around skill acquisition. I personally, there are even some youth that when you want to train them, they'll tell you, no, don't train me. Give me the money. Like, you want to give them scholarship. They say, how much is the scholarship? Give me the money. So my question now is, and there's some of them that we did training for, about 14 of them or 15 of them, asking them, okay, where are the skills now? Train them on how to do websites, how to do code, all those things. And they said that people don't use. One of them told me that if you create websites, people think you're doing Yahoo, and that businesses in the East, they want to go in person. They don't want to buy things online. So they don't find customers for those digital skills. So is it that, how can we, in the age of AI and artificial, blockchain and all these things, we're saying that we don't want to learn digital skills in the Southeast because of Yahoo. So I want you to talk, because skills, yes, okay, you're saying we should do skill acquisition, but what about the people that don't want that skill? They don't want the skill acquisition. And two, the ones that say they've done the skill acquisition, but people don't want to patronize them, or because they're afraid of Yahoo and all that.
Let me just say something before I go to say. Let me just, because I really want to go. Let me just say something concerning the question. You just reminded me of Raymond Opanam. Now, everything is about perception, okay? Now, one of the things I advocate for in those local communities, you have to give skills, you have to equip skills with skills that are we might call it territorially friendly.
Yes,
okay?
territorial
Not
in the
skills
environment.
Exactly my point.
Exactly. Not skills that the person not skills that the person cannot use in his environment. Because okay, I have a friend who is this cyber security or something that he did, and he still finds it difficult to get himself a job that requires that particular skill. It looks so nice. It is something that many companies should look out for, but sometimes the place to which you acquire these skills becomes a question. So in terms of local communities, where you come to a community and discover that most of the people in this community are farmers, you have to channel your energy into equipping them with skills that will make their farming more productive, more easy for them. Okay, if it means in terms of if they're into commercial farming, you try to equip them with tools that will help them improve on their happen in a locality. Okay, but my point is, you don't just go and equip young people with skills because they want
Just
skills.
want to give
One of the
skills.
advice I gave to Ginger Osibe, who happens to be the honorable member representing Isia Langa North and South, I think so. One of the things I told him is, if you must get youth to equip them with digital skills, you must look for those youths who are really interested, because everyone is not interested. Njokiti Gebere and I have done a project in Abia even though that was the custodial center. If you go into the custodial facility, you discover that there are people who are happy to learn tailoring, who are happy to learn shoemaking, who are happy to learn bead making. Now, these people choose the area of skills that they want to get. You don't impose it on them. You first of all do your study and find out what appeals to them more. If you give them what appeals to them more, then you are making a success out of your efforts. Thank you very much. Please permit me to disappear.
Yes, you can jump off. Thank you so much. But I was just going to ask as a follow-up, because when we did that audit, we asked the youths, what do they want to do? Some of them said tailoring, like you mentioned. Some of them said hairdressing. Some people say, oh, they want to fix phone. They want to do all these things, which is fine. We supported them. But we're trying to also move the region to a region where people are creating wealth. We want to be able to create wealth, industrialize, want to be able to attract, IGR. How much of that can you do with hairdressing? And I'm not trivializing it, but how can we upskill? Because this is a global race.
Okay.
You understand?
Let me tell you, there is a problem at the local government. Let me tell you, at least I have friends who are local government chair, deputy local government chair in Abia right now. Now, at the local government level, you will discover that when you enter into an office, you will be shocked. Like I know of a particular local government chair who had to call me from his office to tell me that the first thing that got him shocked was he saw typewriter, typewriter, in the secretary. That was his baptism of fire. Now, you can imagine that we are dealing with civil servants who apparently don't come to work, who
You're muted.
Oh, hello. Now, can you hear me now? Now I said the challenge you will have as a local government chair or whoever at that level is finding capable staff to work for you or work with you. All right. Now, this is my modest opinion. Though the children of, I don't know how practical it is, but this is my opinion. The children of those civil servants who are permanent staff, who cannot use your laptop, who cannot do email, who cannot operate all those things, you get their children, use core members, do the kind of hostel for them, okay, in the local government, where they are not living from their house. You keep them in that hostel, put them under some kind of salaries, okay, just call it maybe internship or whatever at the local government level. Work with core members, let them train some of these young guys, okay? Now, when you have vacancies for proper employment, okay, you can now absorb them into the local government civil service commission, something like that, into that system, so that they can now become the new set of generation of people who can do the things that you want to do. Because the problem you are going to encounter if you want to use all this your data, all this your you want to grow your GDP, all this English. If you use it, you will scare them. Use what they know. In mathematics, there is something they say: you start from the known to the unknown. Use your own. Use the one you can afford at this stage. It's a long-term thing. I understand where you are talking about industrialization and all that. See, the issue of industrial. Remember that Microsoft was in Lagos. They had to leave because they couldn't find staff that had capacity. Okay. Now, the little ones we have, they are very few, and they cannot be everywhere and everywhere at the same time. So you start with what is more appealing to that locality. Then from there, you find ways and means in which you can upscale it. That is the best way to tackle this issue for now that I can remember.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I know that, like I said, this is just the beginning of a conversation that we hope to be able to have more. But thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I like the recommendation that you made about training the younger generation so we can have that pipeline of talents to go into the civil service. Because politicians come and go. It's the civil servants that will be there. They're the ones who are actually the institution that we're talking about. So thank you so much, Kelechi, for that. And before we wrap up the panel, I don't know if we've gone to take closing remarks from everybody, from all the speakers. I guess, Kelechi, you've given yours, but Honorable would like to hear from you, and also our other speaker, Ezindu, as well, to give us your closing remarks. And Honorable, I really want you to talk about your own demographic, right? The people you govern. What has been the challenge for you? Because right now, before, money was an issue. Okay, so now there's money. there's money now. So what is the challenge? And because if we know the challenge, then we'll know how to support, because we really believe in implementation at the grassroots level. So please give us your feedback on that, and then we'll take I think Ezindu is the final panelist for this session. Thank you. And sorry. You said he was saying that there are some specific skills. So from your own experience, what are some of the specific skills that the youth there have? Because in my own place, when I was asking, what are they doing? They couldn't give me any tangible sector. So if there are any sectors that you know about in your own area, please share as well. Thank you.
Okay, in my own area, I am from the rural side of Osioma. Years ago, I brought Vision Alive to come and do computer skill training, AI, website, and all the rest in my area. And after 6 months of those training, I realized that they weren't using it. They were still at home looking for little jobs to do. So I had to change. I'm a fashion designer. I brought about 20 people, did some training on tailoring, 2-3 months, and before you know it, they picked up. They started making clothes, opened their own shops, and it's working for them. So in those local areas, fine, you cannot get somebody that's an undergraduate and you're talking to him about AI. It will take you time to make him understand that we are moving out of the other phase of life to artificial phase. So you give them what they can deal with, what they can earn with now. So you get, gradually you get people that are advanced in knowledge that can learn this AI. But for now, when you're in the rural area, you teach them what they know, what they can handle. Tailoring, hair making, bead making, all these little things. I'm a fashion designer. Kimi, the one that just did the Abia Fashion Week, is a fashion designer and he's a multi-millionaire. So people can still make it through all these little skills. Everybody must not move into artificial intelligence and all the rest.
Okay,
People
Honorable,
will still
let
be
me
making
come in.
clothes.
Honorable, just to clarify what I was saying, what you're talking about is different. Being a fashion designer, that's properly branded. You're talking about, setting up something that becomes, in fact, garment making and all this. This is a form of industrialization that I'm talking about. China, a lot of countries around the world, they made it. Even Turkey and some of these places are making money from, this fashion designing, garment making, and everything. So it's part of the industrialization. All I just meant was kind of doing things on a low level where you're not making money. So definitely, this is a sector that is very important. People come from all over the world and Abba has that ecosystem, is able to. So I just wanted to clarify that I'm not looking down on the sector. My own thought is, how are you doing it? Are you doing it in a way that you're doing it professionally? Yes.
I know where you're coming from. See, but if you bring a teller that's already making money, you teach him about branding and how to bring his business into social media, he moves into another stage. So when you go to the local areas, you teach them welding, bead making, hair making. After some time, you can organize another training. Tell them these things you can earn more when you move into the social media. Then another stage, you teach them branding, how to use websites, email to sell your product, and they'll keep growing. You can't just move into there and you're teaching them branding, social media, and websites, and all the rest. No, it takes time. It's a gradual thing. You first look for where they are and know what can work for them. And that's on that side. And on my own, the local government side, there is money now. Yes, there's money, but people know about the autonomy and they think there are, as a councillor, we have limited projects. No matter how you see it, we still have limited resources. We can't have enough money to do the projects that the local government wants to do or what the people want you to do. we are doing, and they are still expecting more. And they are telling you, you're now at in autonomy. So you need to build this, build this, build this. They forgot that it takes time. It's a gradual thing. You will not do everything the same time. They want you in a month, just 1 month. You build school, you build hospital, and their excuses are you have enough money now to do them. So just with time, they need patience, and they need to understand that the funds are not still enough. And we'll do everything we need to do with time.
All right, Honorable, I would really love for you to stick around for the next panel if you can, because we want to talk about public-private partnerships. And what you just talked about, that the resources are not enough, you're right. Government shouldn't be doing everything. And unfortunately, our citizens are always expecting government to do everything, pay their children's school fees, pay everything, build everything. So that's where the private sector comes in. So that's what we're talking about on the next panel. It would be nice if you can stay on to also share comments and some of these and how we can actually bring in those sort of investments. So thank you so much for your comments. And then we'll take the next speaker now. Thanks.
Okay, so in addition to what they've said, because I have a very short time, there are 3 layers of empowerment, skill empowerment, I feel we should introduce to the rural level. The first layer is what they're already doing, right? The first problem is that when you get to rural areas, you find agriculture is now something that is left for older people, older women especially, but older men too. Most young people are disconnected from the agricultural sector, and we can see it manifest in the lack of food around the country, especially in Southeast Nigeria now. Food has become such a rarity, like getting food is difficult. The first set of skills is agriculture skills. How do we teach these young people modern, exciting way to do what their mama and their papa they do for farm? How do we also show them how to make more money from agriculture? Because there is ample land. Just in every rural community, just like mine, just behind your house, there is land, family agricultural farm. Then you have, other forms of farms. We cannot overlook the importance of introducing innovation to agriculture at the rural level. Urban people who live in urban areas, you don't have enough farmland for that. So we cannot overlook that. Second level is where you now have like some of these applied arts, bead making, fashion designing, arts and crafts and all that, because you don't need tech. You don't need to bring in new masts, broadbands and all that. These are things they can easily get raw materials for. And then finally, at the top layer is where you bring in technology. Now you're in your farm as a young person, or you're doing your art and your crafts. How do we bring in technology to help you enhance and bring more visibility to these skills you've been taught? Right? Agriculture is really good. I'm a creative media specialist. Imagine young people going to farms and making reels about it. These reels will blow up. Imagine people making reels of their harvest. These reels will blow up. So, but first and foremost, we need to show them that agriculture is beautiful again. We need to show them that it's not old school to go to farm. It's not old school to harvest your palm. That's to answer that question. Now, you also mentioned at the beginning how badly our image as a region is in the Southeast. And I can't tell you how bad that makes me feel. But I also think we contribute to a large percentage to that. Most times when you see Southeasterners talk about Southeast, when we make posts about Southeast, 70% of the time we're talking about negativities. And most times it is us just saying it in quotes the way it is, saying it how we feel about it. But there is crime around Nigeria. I've traveled widely, and most of us here have traveled widely around Nigeria. Southeast does not have more crime than Northeast. Southeast Nigeria does not have more crime than Southwest Nigeria. There's nothing happening in the Southeast Nigeria, including the Nkoromi or Met that you talk about. That is not a problem in other parts of Nigeria. But what we do, because we're vocal people, we're really vocal. What we do is that we tend to highlight those negativities in a bit to call them out. We tend to highlight them, and people who are looking out are only seeing us talk about sit at home, Met, and all that, and forget that we also need to point out those positive trends that happen in the Southeast. 2 things before I round off. First, I established Yangi, Young Alternative News on Growth and Innovation. It was a CSR when I was in Abia State. That was primarily focused on spotlighting those developmental, innovative things that young people are doing in Southeast Nigeria, starting from Abia State. And trust me, we ran that for 2 years before I moved to Abuja. And it was huge. It was huge because we started discovering crazy things young people are doing at the rural level, crazy things that people were doing in Umuahia, in Aba, in Enugu, in Onitsha. And you would not believe that these things, some of us who are outside Southeast Nigeria now, when I try to have those conversations and I tell them, do you know this is going on in Aba, Nigeria? People don't know. Do you know that this is going on in Ben, the local government? People don't know. So we need to invest more money in structures, media platforms that showcase those positives of Southeast Nigeria. Secondly, I think Obi Nauzije is here. He did a child of industry competition when he was in Abia State, and I think he's still running that initiative that went through rural schools and picked out some of the smartest, innovative young people. There are people who are born with these natural, innovative talents in rural areas, and you can just bring them out. He did competitions, there were cash awards. You know, I want to speak to the sustainability of projects like this. We shouldn't just give them skills and let them go. When you equip somebody with a skill and you walk away, what is the person supposed to do with that skill? I mean, when you teach somebody a skill, you now follow up with how this skill can be used in their vicinity. Then you teach them the character and the attitude. You need to be able to make some money from this skill, because your skill alone by itself is useless if you don't have the necessary attitude and the character you need to bring to work when you come up with that, when you show up with that skill. Then you teach them the business of that skill, and then you cap it up by showing them how to begin to create their own structures and how to employ other people. So there are several processes, levels to this. Usually we just teach them skills and walk away. I want to see that two things. We invest more money in media platforms that can show the positives, so that when you type Southeast Nigeria on Facebook, you're seeing the negatives, yes, but you're also seeing positives, balancing it out. Secondly, we don't just give them skills and walk away. There has to be a follow-up process. There has to be a way of making sure that there is community created around it. This, if we treat like my own training, 300 of them are in group chats. I follow up personally. Sometimes I support with cash. Some of them want to buy equipment. Oh, I have 500,000 there. I need an extra this amount. I find a way to just connect with fundraisers and give them the support, the financial support they need. Now it goes beyond financial support. After these skills, some of them want to have someone they can go back to and ask questions. Oh, I just worked for this client. I ran into a problem. How do I come up? How do I come out of it? So there has to be sustainability, there has to be community, and there has to be a solid follow-up framework. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. I said fantastic. I'm really blown away by, the wealth of knowledge and experience from each and every one of you that have spoken. It gives me great joy that we have people of this caliber in the Southeast. My only little call to action is that let everyone, because some of these things are sounding like, and I'm happy yours is still ongoing, but like Obinna, for instance, you mentioned his projects. Some of these things I'm hearing are in past tense. So a part of me is like, I hope we can continue. I hope we, can continue the things that we're doing to continue to impact the knowledge to the next generation. This has been really exciting for me. I've learned a lot and from each and every one of you. And I hope that we can continue to dialogue on ways to move the Southeast and the entire country forward. So back to you, our moderator.
Thank you so much, Chinenye. That was a good job. Also, I really want to thank our panelists. Thank you, Jubilee. Thank you, Honorable Njoko. And thank you. All of you did a wonderful work. That was a very insightful panel. And I also want to shout out to people on the chat box commenting and being lively. Thank you, Pastra. Thank you, Alozie. Thank you, Nkechinyere. Yes, we see you. So please engage the chat box, put your questions, put your concerns, put words of encouragement to the panelists.
So please don't leave. It's still ongoing. He's about to introduce the next segment. I'm seeing some people are dropping off.
Yes. So right away, we are going to the next panel, which is Bridging the Gap, PPPs, Public-Private Partnerships for Grassroots Skill Development. The first panel, talked about governance at the grassroots and local government, talked about some of the skills gap, also mentioned some infrastructural gap. This panel is going to look into the collaboration between government, private companies, and communities. How can we leverage the collaboration to, tackle youth unemployment, foster entrepreneurship, and build, sustainable practices? So to help us in this conversation, I'm going to invite our first panelist, Chima Raymond Okwa. He's a director of the Initiative for Adaptive Thinking and Strategic Leadership. I love the sound of that. So if you're here, please, could you kindly turn on your microphone and say hello to everyone? Mr.
Hello.
Chima Raymond Okwa.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, good afternoon, and I'm glad to be here.
We are glad to have you too. Thank you so much for joining. Next, we have Ugomde Obona. He's a creative director of Toskin, I hope I pronounced that correctly, fashion house. And he was also the convener of the Abia Fashion Week. I was raving about it when we started. A huge event, and congratulations on the successful, facilitation of such wonderful events. So Ogomde, if you're here, could you kindly turn on your microphone and say hello to everyone?
So
You can, quickly talk about the Abia Fashion Week.
Okay, so
just in a minute.
So Gomde is not here now. He complained about having little emergencies, medical emergencies for his daughter. So
oh, all right. I hope whatever emergency sorts itself. All right, I'm gonna move on to the next speaker, Honorable Chimereze Okibu Okoro, who is a special advisor to the governor of Abia State on internally generated revenue, an incredibly busy man who has afforded us his time to come talk to us. So if you're here, sir, could you kindly turn on your microphone and say hello to everyone?
Okay. Hello to everyone. Thank you, Obi. It's glad to be here.
Thank you so much for creating time to join. Now, I will start with you, Honorable Koro. Yes, and I would love for you to turn on your camera if you can. Seriously, it creates your audience if they are able to see you.
Okay, so I need to put on my makeup.
All right, so I'm going to start with you, Chima.
Okay.
So if you listen to the first panel, you can hear some of the gaps in infrastructure development and some of the things that they mentioned. Now, what successful public-private partnership models do you think exist for grassroots skill development, and how can they
Okay, in as much as I lost you.
Sorry, don't want me to take the question again?
Yeah, what successful
PPP models exist across the spectrum in Nigeria or even outside of Nigeria for grassroots skill development, not just skill, but you can choose to mirror in on skill, but really skills, infrastructure, basically, and how can they be adapted for our industry rich Abia State, for our vibrant state of Abia State?
Okay, I'm quite excited the
I am so sorry, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Much better, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, it's quite exciting to have these conversations, especially in terms of how private partnerships support some level of development, especially with the grassroots. But I think largely the first panel, dealt a little bit with what I call the scope of the problem. For the context of this conversation, I live in Igbo land, and I've worked in Igbo land, and We see that development exists here, but part of the work and the conversations that came in the first panel are the challenges that we continue to face. Governments will continue to do interventions, right? And critically, the interventions they do, like you noted, are not usually very enough if we don't get that level of support from private initiatives, both in terms of institutions or persons, so to say. That noted, there are quite several private partnerships that existed in terms of focusing on skills development. So, for instance, the economy of the Southeast and the region is largely driven by the informal sector. We see the apprenticeship system, which is a private-driven economic system, right? And the apprenticeship system has been studied to be one of the most effective, community development and individual development spectrum, right? And what it does, that it allows people to learn over a period of time in trade and in commerce or whatever the case may be. And, in terms, the system automatically is supposed to empower these people to start up their own ventures. So, the reason why I'm doing this tweak in terms of talking about apprenticeship system is that we've seen that the apprenticeship system has, at some point lost its value over time because of three critical reasons. One is that the advent of mass education. Number two is mass education in terms of formal education. Two is the uncertainty of getting settled at the end of maybe a 6 or 7 year period. And then lastly is this thing called the mass exodus of young people from, within the region out of our grassroots communities. So people are looking for better opportunities. Of course, you can't see yourself as a graduate who maybe you want to, be trading spare parts, as the case may be. In as much as the model has, had initially helped, structure and the evolution of the economy and development of the grassroots, but we see that this advent is dwindling. The advent of these three challenges are dwindling that possibility of creating more industries or more institutions that will take care of, our grassroots development. This noted, I feel that in the past, the Igbo people, were survivors of a very, hideous war, and they were able to, transition into this, economic space that has developed over time. The last part of my conversation is going to be hinged on my communities directly. I come from Ohafia, somewhere in Abia State. And in Ohafia, we have something called the age grade system. These are models I've worked. The age grade system is that people within a certain age range will come together, toward their retirement time, maybe 59, 60, 61, and they decide to do a community development initiative, building of schools, construction of roads. These are basically done by age grade systems, individuals and partners from the community. We see how how the individuals or the people from the community are helping in shaping the development of of our communities, and of course of our grassroots, as the case may be. The reason why I'm tilting toward this model, because this is what is stronger in our society rather than the influx of the banks or big tech companies, as the case may be. If we want to focus on the development of our grassroots, we must look at institutions that are already existing, driven by persons or driven by private initiatives, and how they've so far helped in shaping our communities. To end, this conversation, I'd just like to, drive this to a point. The point I'm trying to make is that the strength of our institutions in terms of private institutions lies in the capabilities of the people we are able to build. And the sustainability of that lies in how we're able to reinvent the wheel. Reinventing the wheel means that if we are strengthening our local institutions and businesses, they in turn, Igbo people naturally are affluent people, and they do not naturally also want to see problems that are coexisting in their vicinity. So they directly want to find a way to begin to solve community issues. And if these institutions are strengthened, our apprenticeship system, our town hall union systems as private partners to community development or grassroots development, we see how we are, galvanizing the power of the grassroots to solve the grassroots issues. Let me end there.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Chema. I really want us to use our virtual emojis to show appreciations to the panelists. All these wonderful insights should be appreciated. So please, if you can hear me, I need you to go use your emojis and give Mr. Chema a raucous round of applause. Thank you so much, Chema. I love the fact that you are advocating for using local systems for the solutions that we seek. It's really where it is. I mean, we can only, I think it's much better to use to look inward in solving the problems that exist in our community. So thank you so much for that. So I will go to you, Honorable Chimereze. You are the special advisor to the governor of Abia State on internally generated revenue. But before this appointment, you were in private sector. And I don't know if you intend to go back to private sector, but I believe you can help us answer this question. So how can private companies be better incentivized to invest in community-focused skill building programs? Can you hear me? Okay, so before it comes up, Mr. Chima, you made mention of the conversation stopping or something. No, this is a start of a series of dialogues that will continue, that will go on. We are critically looking at how to unlock the development in the Southeast, starting from Abia State. So this is the first of many.
Yes, I clearly understand.
All right. Okay, so Ms. Hastrop is saying that he would like to contribute to this topic. Okay, I will come to you, Mr. Hastrop. So, Obina, could you let me know if Honorable Koro is on this call so that I can move on to someone else? Okay, all right. So I'm gonna give Hastrop 2 minutes just because I want to show you that we want our audience to be, to participate. This is just not this is not a dialogue between
I'm here.
panelists.
I was looking from network glitches.
Oh, okay. Honorable Koro is here. Did you hear the question, or do you want me to take it again? Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Please, can I take it again? I had some network glitches then, so I just came back up again.
So if you can turn on your camera, it will be best.
Yes, I can hear you. I had the network glitch then, but I'm back.
All right. Now. Yeah, it's okay. All right. So we want to know how private companies can be better incentivized to invest in community-focused skill building programs. You are now the special advisor to the governor on internally generated revenue. So sorry, we are not able to hear you. Okay, so because we are pressed for time, I will direct that question to you, Chima. I'm so sorry we're we're having a back-to-back poser.
Oh, okay. Thank you again. I'm so sorry that network has been so terrible over here recently. And I think it's quite a very dicey question in terms of the how private institutions are to support what do you call it? Maybe let me put it in terms of the skills development, within the Southeast, because which is quite, or Abia, or grassroots, so to say. Number one, I usually find, let me paint this picture. I usually find it very interesting and sometimes very worrisome, to look at, the government skills development, grassroots skills development programs, for instance. The politicians, usually, apologies to Honorable Okoro, the politicians will usually, in terms of designing grassroots skills programs, will usually just focus, on giving what in terms of empowerment, give them Okada, keke, frying pan for some people, dressing, equipment, hair dryers, generators, cooking utensils, and sewing machines. Usually it doesn't go beyond, this. And we see that all over the country, not just peculiar to, the Southeast or Abia. The problem with that is that if you walk down the streets, you see maybe 4 or 5 tailors, empowered by the government. And they're all in this, in these silos, trying to look for. One is that the skills are not upgraded. They just have maybe learned about the basic, cutting and joining of, materials. And then they give them sewing machines, and then, they go open shops. And then you see that, 2 or 3 months down the line, or maybe if they are tenacious enough, they can last a year. And after a year, they sell off those machines because, of course, they don't have customers, and they don't have, people who are coming to patronize most of the things they are doing. One is, how relevant are most of these initiatives in terms of our grassroots development? And is that what is required at that particular point in time? Two is, most of these people don't also, even if they've done, so well in terms of learning, they are not able to get access to funding to be able to maybe scale up most of their businesses, because of course they don't have, assets, as what do you call this again? They don't have assets that they can use as, sorry, my brain is frying up,
as collateral or security.
Collateral. Thank you so much. As collaterals, to be able to access some funding from the private institutions. But my thought exactly is, if we have to, have a grassroots-led, development, there has to be something called, understanding the context of the needs of the communities. And sometimes governments cannot usually do this study. Not everybody, we don't need keke or okadas everywhere. We need to understand the, geo opportunities that are existent within our localities. For instance, for example, I live in Abia. I've worked in Abia, and I know that there are some places that have access, to touch. That is what they have access to. That is what is most abundant in that area. There are people who have access, to a lot of farms, and then they're able to tap most of these resources to, start producing dry gin and the rest of them. Can we do more of a job opportunity mapping, aided by private partners? And most of the opportunities that we find there, can we now begin to train the young people in that regard, who becomes the workforce, and the private partners coming to harvest these products in terms of branding and marketing. So one is that you are now, complementing the effort of the government in terms of, the government trains these skills, and what the private partners, will do is support clusters and support with maybe machineries, as the case may be, and then take care of the branding and market. It's a win-win situation. We are developing more of the grassroots and the skills at the grassroots level, and then you're also in turn also putting the products from these communities or at the market or on the market, and then
I'm so sorry, Mr. Raymond, you have just 1 minute to round off.
Yeah, so the incentives that this does is that there is a trickle down of finances that keeps coming back to the grassroots, and then they keep also learning with the machineries that are coming. So, for instance, Abia in 1 minute is a fashion place, and one thing that has sustained the fashion industry of Abia is we see this cluster of garment makers or the cluster of leather makers. If government is able, or private institution, not government, is able to come and buy machineries to support the large productions of most of these places. We have the skills already there. We have the personnel already there. All they need is access to machines. So if private institutions are able to bring the machines to support the already existent work around these areas, you see that it's a win-win situation both for the businesses and the private businesses, and of course the the skilled people who are also looking for opportunities to to use these machines. These are just my 2 points.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Raymond. Please, a round of applause for Mr. Raymond. Everyone, you can hear me. All right, so Honorable Koro is back. So can you turn on your microphone? Let's check this time if we can hear you. Hello, sir. Can you hear us? All right. So, Jastrop, if you can hear me, you have 1 minute to air your thoughts or your view. If you have a concern, or you have a question, or you have an addition to make. Can you hear me, Jastrop?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My name is Astrop Polade.
Sorry, Astrop, yeah.
Yes. It's a big joy to be part of this group today. And I would just like to add to what
Sure.
Hello? Hello?
Honorable Okoro, if you can hear us, we are not able to hear you. Your network is bad.
You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me too?
Yes, we can hear you. There's a lag, but we can hear you now.
I can hear you.
Okay, so sir, we're going to step you down and bring you up much later. Can you hear us? All right. So, Honorable, if you can hear us, so can you share your thoughts on the role of government in ensuring that PPPs effectively address youth unemployment and drive on entrepreneurship? Sorry. Let me take that again.
We're struggling to see you and hear you, or maybe even if it's just to hear you, because it would be very nice, since you're the special advisor to the governor, to really hear the perspectives, of what government is doing and how the private sector can key into what government is doing. That's what public-private partnership is all about. So if you can hear us, please go ahead.
All right, I think we can move on. We are pressed for time.
Okay, maybe we
All
should
right,
take
so
Kolade Hasrop's comments.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. What I just think, the person who spoke last was talking about the incentive that most of our governors do, like giving out sewing machines, Okadas, and the likes of it. And I think the reason why those things don't actually impact more in the SME sector is because it appears that we are dissipating our energy. When you don't put such energies together, can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
When you don't put such energies together in a cluster, they don't achieve much. Every one of us today can travel to China to say we want to buy whatever quantity of material or jeans or clothes that you want, and you will get them at the speed of light. That is not because China is anything special. It is simply because China is able to put these things in clusters. Like, for example, if I'm a governor and I choose to give out sewing machines to people who are skilled in that sector, instead of giving it to them in splinters, I can partner with a private sector, a private company, who builds just the factory. I would fill that factory with sewing machines. These sewing machines that are in these factories, not just sewing machines, I will also have a segment in that factory that is meant for embroidering and other stuff like that. At least I cannot give every tailor an embroidering machine. I can give every tailor a sewing machine. But in that factory, we have a sector that can do other things, other specialties. Now, the private sector builds the factory. I put the sewing machines there. I identify people in my community that can sew. So they go into this factory. They will be assumed to be owners of those machines in this factory. The factory can have almost 200 to 300 machines. They can bring in their own customers' materials to sew there, but before taking any completed job out of that factory, they pay to the management of that factory. Now, in such a factory, if in my state, I identify that we have 2 million people and they wear jeans, they wear shirts, they wear traditional stuff, this factory can effectively then produce these things in bulk. It is written in the Bible, it says, behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. When you don't put your efforts together in a place, there's very little that you can achieve. The same thing, even if you want to create, industrialize our mineral resources or whatever. If you identify great and accomplished businessmen in Nigeria, like Tony Elumelu and the likes of them, ask these people to come up with an investment portfolio. The government simply gives this investment portfolio 2 trillion naira or 5 trillion naira. Identify the areas in the economy as loan. You're not dashing them. You give them as loan and maybe like 5% interest on it. This government identify areas within the economy that you want to push in huge capital. This investment portfolio simply goes there, maybe the mining industry, the iron industry, the railway industry. This investment portfolio owned by Tony Elumelu, Dangote, Otedola, the likes of them. They put this money into this area, create that industry, and as they create that industry, they pay back the loan to the government. That is how China works.
All right, so Mr. Hastrop, we are profoundly grateful for your contribution. Thank you so much. We believe in the recommendations you've made. We've talked about this before. There is power in cluster, and then opening that cluster to the market, access to market, access to funding. And we're also taking notes of everything said. Mr. Chema's recommendations for geo-opportunity mapping, these are very insightful recommendations, and we are noting everything down. So if Honorable is back with us, would like to have you turn on your microphone and
Yes.
answer the question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We are happy that, yes, we are going to listen to you, buffering or not. So, Honorable, can you tell us the role of government in ensuring that PPPs effectively address youth unemployment and drive entrepreneurship? Honorable, can you hear us?
So,
Honorable, there are forces that
I can hear you
are
and I'm
trying
speaking. Can you hear me?
not to hear you, but yes, we can hear you. You know what? Can you turn off your video, your camera, and just speak with your audio on? Maybe it will be better that way.
Honorable, you might have to borrow somebody's phone or tell somebody to hotspot you. Maybe you have to borrow somebody else's phone or device because
I'll call you back.
can't hear from
I'm busy with my phone. I'll call you back.
Honorable, can you hear us?
I think his network is being interrupted by calls. He's a very busy man.
Or maybe if he can borrow somebody's phone, so that we can hear from him.
The Honorable used to have a very busy phone. People call him a lot. The best thing would be to borrow another person's phone and log in through the phone. Me, I was using my wife's phone because I know I can't stay 5 minutes without getting calls.
Mine wasn't really calls, so it's just low. I think it's bad reception around here.
Oh, you're here now. Thank you, sir. Did you get question?
Yeah, so I was trying to explain my own perspective towards that in terms of government support for PPP growth in the economy.
Okay, so precisely, how can the government leverage PPPs to tackle unemployment and drive entrepreneurship in Abia State? Job creation, basically unlocking the potential of the demographic.
Honorable, are you still with us?
I'm right there.
Okay, sir. Please, if you can hear us, could you kindly respond?
Yeah. So, for me, from what I see, I think is a convergence dynamics where government needs to create policy that will guide PPP within the Abia State economy. Currently, the state government have set up a PPP desk and also an investment promotion desk that will be able to harmonize all forms of investment and ensure that it is community driven or societal driven, as the case may be. So, one of the major things to do is to create a policy, just to have a policy around that will guide business approvals, also guide incentives to investors. Because for you want any investor to come into your state to partner with you, need to do a lot of things. You need to have a legal framework that protects them. It also that legal framework needs to state what are everybody's bringing to the table, at what percentage, what are the benefits from that stuff you're dropping on the table. Then another important thing is legal framework. There should be a standardized SLA or business agreement driven by a policy where in business or investors can actually leverage on and know that we are protected even when a particular government is not or particular administration is not in place. Next administration will also protect, and there should also be respect for rule of law. That also going to balance investors' mindset in that regard. Then that will drive the policy that goes on. The other important thing to talk about is the fiscal policy of the state as well. Things around tax incentive, holidays, tax discount, rebate, and what have you. Even exemption as well is very, very important for business to try, for investors to come around, because when investor is coming into town, you need to come with a lot of things, including funding, expertise. You're also going to come with resources and rest of them, because most of the resources might actually not be gotten locally. So it's important that government give them a leverage around that taxation, so that whatever they have
Okay, so Honorable, thank you for that feedback. And if you can still hear me, tremendous work that Abia State is doing. And I was opportune to, when the governor attended, there was a program at Johns Hopkins University, and then a reception by one of my friends who is actually from Abia originally, but she is an elected official in the US, the city of Maryland. So Bowie, Maryland. So a lot of people there at that event, from the diaspora, wanted to come back home to invest. A lot of people. I mean, the governor was overwhelmed, because people were coming to him, trying to talk to him, take pictures. Because when you talk about good governance, and I think both within Nigeria and outside Nigeria, people see Abia State as an example of good leadership and accountability. So there's a lot of people that want to invest. And I know you said you set up an investment desk, but what is the level of awareness? So the people who want to invest, do they know how to invest? Do they need to know somebody? How digitally, so for instance, if I go online, can I find investment opportunities in Abia State? Or do I have to fly down if I'm in Mexico, if I'm in America, if I'm in Paris? So, what is the government? Because for PPPs to happen, for public-private partnership to happen, government also needs to kind of create, I won't just say, yes, it's good to have a policy document, but in terms of the implementation, how easy is it for people to be able to invest from outer, be it the diaspora, be it foreign investors, or be it even just Nigerians in Nigeria that want to invest in the Southeast?
Okay, so we have in the States, if I'm coming direct the response to that, in the States, we just set up a PPP desk. We are incubating that. It's coming up. Somebody's heading that for today. But speaking as an individual and what I foresee that the state is looking at, is also create a one-stop shop for investment and promotion, so that people can easily stay wherever they are, look at the options we have in other states, and be able to make their decision and begin to run that. Other states is also opening up for a lot of business. The trade fair is going on currently, and people are showcasing the potentials from local government to local government, from the clusters in about the garments, the trado medicine, the shoe clusters, the agricultural clusters. People are showcasing the things they can also do. So what it means is that any as interested in other state will take advantage of this opportunity of trade fair to look at what he or she wants to do. Then they can take off from there. But the way the state is going is to be able to woo investors and then people can actually stay wherever they are to decide on what they want to do and come. Currently, a lot of investors have been coming around to looking at what's existing in other states and also what they also want to do. And hopefully, that's going to yield a lot of results in the shortest possible time.
Okay, thank you for that. We have a comment in the chat box saying, totally agree. I live in the diaspora and these conversations are consistent. The biggest gap is trust and transparency on type of investment. So can we talk about the issue of trust? Across the country, there's a trust deficit. Our citizens don't trust our leaders, unfortunately, because of things that have happened in the past, in the present, mismanagement of funds and what have you. Obviously, I mentioned the fact that Abia State so far has that goodwill in terms of accountability, although, I mean, there's always room for progress. So how do we make this? Because I, for one, if I want to invest, I need information on investments. I need to know, and sometimes you don't want to reinvent the wheel. I love the fact that you mentioned that there are clusters already, because initially the problem some people talked about initially was that, oh, they're not investing because there are no clusters, or maybe let's say projects are not sustainable because they are done in silos. So maybe you just give some people machine here and then some other people, but we need to cluster it like the way it's done in China and all those places. So how can we leverage on what already exists? Because everybody knows Aba is known for so many things for a long time. We've been trade, garments, all this thing. But how can we leverage on what already exists, but build on it? So, existing structures, existing businesses, that are bankable, and then build on it. And then secondly, there are two questions I want to ask you. This one is my own personal question. Is on e-commerce. Because right now, we're helping the country to develop a framework, an e-commerce framework, e-commerce and digital trade. I'm sure you're aware of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement area. So the way you have the European Union, we want Africa to be one trading bloc. I believe that Abia State should be one of the biggest beneficiaries of AFTA, because we already have that ecosystem there naturally, even without forcing it. There are some states that are trying to force this to happen, but so how can we get, but trade now, a huge part of trade is digital trade. And unfortunately, our people, they don't like, we mentioned it in the last panel about some people saying that they don't want to be digital because they believe that being digital means that you're doing Yahoo. So people in the East will not want to patronize you. But if you talk about China, you have to talk about Alibaba. If you talk about the US, talk about Amazon. How can we get our traders online? How can we get these brick and mortar businesses to digitize? Because if you want to service Africa, if you want to service the free trade area, regionally, ECOWAS and what have you, and create big organizations, you need to be in tune with the technology of the 21st century. So what is your feedback on those two questions? Thank you.
Okay, so the first comment around trust. The states currently now portends a high rate of trust deposits that everybody can see. That's why whatever we are doing in the state, to make sure we have a good legal framework, and there's a process to it. You can easily see the beginning to the end of what you want to do, so you can get into that. So that even when I was responding earlier on, I told the most important thing is to have a governance and build a policy around whatever you want to do. That policy will guide around the good framework. It will guide around
Honorable, we're losing you again. I don't know if you can still hear us.
the leverage now is around the existing.
Okay, you're back. We can hear you. Go ahead, please. And thank you to those of you who are commenting on the chat box. We like your interaction, we like your comments, we like your contributions, so please keep them coming. Honorable, please go ahead if you can still hear us on what the state is doing. And I also see, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so talking about leverage, some of us have the opportunity to being born in Abia,
Okay, so we're unable to hear Honorable, and I will step him down and we can bring him up later or on another series because we're pressed for time. So thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, Hastrop. And also to our audience that
So
have been
Raymond
contributing to the
gave
conversation.
a very important point which I want to highlight on the comment section. He said at the government level, they're working on developing a framework for common facility centers, and that they're mapping out the new ones. So it's still in line with the clusters situation that we're talking about. So thank you for that comment, Raymond. Honorable, we have to come back. We have our in-person council. We need to hear from you properly because this network has really affected us today.
All right. So without wasting for much time, I will take us to the next panel, to the third panel. A moment, please.
I'm back. Hello? Hello? You're muted.
Okay, Honorable, what will happen? We want to introduce more speakers to join the conversation. So we'll call on them. Yeah, so just stay put. You still answer the question that I asked you. Let us introduce, we have 2 more speakers that are joining. Albert, we can hear you and we can see you. So maybe go ahead, please. All right. So panel 3 is talking about driving. Okay, it's talking about driving industrial growth, energy, and unlocking e-commerce potential. Obinna will be joining the conversation as well. Obinna has been one of the organizers, in fact, the lead organizer of this conversation. Obinna is the son of the soil. He's from Abia State, and he has done a lot of impactful projects in Abia State. So he's going to be joining this conversation. And we have Prince Uraka and Joseph Ikpe. I hope I pronounced the names well. Please don't please, I hope you don't mind if I didn't pronounce it well. But if we have Prince Uraka, please unmute yourself. Prince Uraka is an entrepreneur with major interest in the fashion business. He has grown with lots of experience working on the fashion industry through his brand, Kembia Wears. He's a trained economist and a founding member of Garment and Footwear Factory Owners Association of Nigeria. Prince, if you're there, please unmute, say hello. Let's hear from you. Are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much for joining us. We have another speaker, Joseph Ikpe. He's a seasoned business development consultant with over a decade of experience in the manufacturing industry. As the CEO of the Garment and Footwear Factory Owners Association of Nigeria, he specializes in driving impactful projects in textile, garments, and footwear production. With a deep commitment to fostering growth and innovation, Joseph has established himself as a leader in developing sustainable manufacturing solutions. So, Joseph, can you hear us? And if you can come on video, that would be great. We want to put a face to the name. Awesome.
Yeah. Good evening.
Thank you for obliging us. Although we can only see your eyes and your nose, but it's better than nothing. If you can move your device back a bit, okay, awesome. We can see your whole face now.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm sure you've been following the conversation thus far, and we've had a mix of policymakers, that's those in government, both at the state level, at the local government level, and also the entrepreneurs. And I think the beauty of countries like China and other countries is that you have this partnership between government and the private sector. So as you're developing policy, the government should be listening to the people in the private sector to understand what are their pain points, what are their successes, what are their weaknesses, what do they need help with? And then that partnership, is what then leads to wealth creation, job creation, and, innovation. So it's good to have you both on this. I don't know if Obinna is, Obinna, are you ready? Are you ready to moderate? Can I hand over to you? But I'm still part of this conversation. I'm part of all the panels. I'm very passionate about these issues. So, Obinna. Okay. Albert is supposed to be moderating, but but anyways, let's get your thoughts on the questions that we've discussed so far, right? I asked the question to Honorable Chimezie, and I was saying that Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is here. Countries are trying to leverage on it. Nigeria didn't sign initially because there was this fear that Nigeria will become a dumping ground. So if we open up our markets, the AFCFTA, what happens when the Chinas of this world and everyone, they just come and dump their products on us, and then we ourselves will not be able to export our own products. So as business owners, as people who are in the manufacturing space, how can we ensure that Nigerian businesses win, especially businesses in the Southeast? How can they win in the issue of this AFCFTA? How can we be the ones actually expanding, selling to the markets, not only in Africa, but globally? So you can go first, Joseph, and then we can take our other speaker, Prince, after you. Thank you.
Okay, well, I like the fact that we are talking about these things because it has been a very serious issue over time. Well, the AFCFTA agreement, although it has not is not being implemented the way it should, but I think that our people can leverage on it. Nevertheless, we can leverage on it. I do not know at the moment. You said Nigeria did not sign. Have we signed now?
Sorry, we have signed. We've signed. I said initially, when there was still that debate about it in the beginning. This was during Buhari's administration. A few people, in fact, they accused someone like Dangote, because we know the way Dangote has a monopoly. They accuse him of being one of the people who are against Nigeria signing.
Okay, that's interesting to know, because I know that a couple of manufacturers in Nigeria, MSMEs, especially in Abia, where we produce shoes, clothes, our people actually do exports, but informally, we do not have an official process of doing business with our neighboring countries. But unofficially, on daily basis, goods and services are transacted across borders. In our community, in the GAFON community, the Garment and Footwear Association, we have a lot of our members whose customers come from places like Cameroon, places like Ghana, places like Togo and the rest of them. They do well deals every day, right? They do well deals to these places. But unfortunately, the trading is done unofficial. There's no record, there's no data.
Exactly.
Even the government does not even have a system to track what these guys do. As a matter of fact, if we should put our transactions into perspectives, into clear perspectives, you will be shocked at the numbers that you will hear. Millions of naira people raking into this country, but it is not accounted for so many reasons. Either because this company doesn't want to pay tax, or probably because this person feels that he's not benefiting anything from the government. So why should he let his data open? Why should he declare what he does to the government? So I think in this direction that the government needs to start looking into the activities of the MSMEs. They need to start looking into data collection, most importantly, because data is very much essential for our development. Data is very much essential for our development. So we need to start talking about how to collect this data. Also,
so I like this point you're making about data. And you guys have an association. So have you tried to do anything in terms of data collection for your association? Is there something the government can do practically, especially government at the state level and even the local government level? Because now we're talking about not just waiting for the government at the center, right, at the top. So is there anything that can be done to capture that data?
Yes, the association, we are doing our own bit, a little bit, because we do not, data collection requires a lot of resources. It's not something you just dive into, and there's a lot of laws surrounding data collection and data management. So you don't just go about asking people, what did you do? How did you do it? And things like that. At the end of the day, you may break privacy of someone or privacy of a company, and that can lead to a more bigger problem. So I think basically it is the responsibility of the government to develop a framework that will see to the collection of this data. The government can partner with associations, not just our own. There are so many associations operating in the garments and the footwear sector. They can call for a stakeholders meeting and start looking into how do we collect this data. How do we ensure that manufacturers, how do we make them willing to comply to the collection of this data? The little knowledge I have with,
Can I ask a question? You said the manufacturers, you talked about two things, data protection and privacy, which is a key part. I understand that. Now, the second part is the people not wanting to release the data, maybe because they don't want to pay taxes. But has there been any kind of sensitization exercise to tell them that, look, if you formalize your business and formalize your trade, you can actually have access to more capital, for instance, from Afrexim Bank and all that stuff. Has there been any incentivization for them to say, go ahead.
Yes, we have been doing that. As a matter of fact, we have entered into a couple of partnerships with some development financial institutions, of which before they engage you or do anything with you, certainly there are certain information data they will collect, such as like when we are doing business with Bank of Industry, they will request for list of top 10 customers, they will request for transactions, they will request for bank statement, they will request for a lot of documents will be required. Definitely, these customers are always willing to submit these details because they know they want to get something from the institution that is requesting for it. So on the part of the government, if they want to collect data, if they want the manufacturers to be willing to submit this data, it's very simple. It's just for you to show that there is a value you can receive by giving this data. For example, government can introduce maybe exports, finance, whatever. They can come up with a program, all right, and say, okay, if you export maybe $2,000 worth of goods, you can receive $1,000 back as a credit or as a loan, and you pay it over time, maybe for a period of 2 years or a period of 3 years at single-digit interest rates. Do you understand? And people would be willing. People would be willing to submit. They'll be willing to export, and it will
I
become
love that
official.
suggestion. That's a good suggestion.
It will become official.
Yeah.
It will become official. People would want to comply because they know that this will be a step towards expanding their business.
I agree with you. Thank you. So let me bring Prince into this conversation. And I love what you just mentioned. Government has to incentivize the private sector. And the private sector, we already talked about the fact that businesses sometimes don't trust government. They just see government always coming to collect tax, to do this and do that. And then at the end of the day, they feel like, what are we really getting in return? We're providing power for ourselves. We're providing security. We're doing everything. So why should I, so there's that distrust, and the social contract, is a challenge. And I think that this is really a window of opportunity. And I'll come back to you after I ask Prince a question. To just ask, how can we practically get e-commerce? How can we make Aba, and Abia State in general, a hub for e-commerce in Africa? Because Aba is already a hub when you talk about trade. Like you mentioned, people I know come from all over, even African countries and all that. Oh, I see Prince just disconnected. I don't know if it's his network. But yeah, I know that Aba is already a huge hub. Most of the fashion designers in Lagos, in different African countries, they prefer to come to Aba, because if you go to China, sometimes you need to buy things in bulk. And then if you come to Aba, at least they'll sell it to you at a particular, amount that makes it more, not too onerous for your business. So I don't know, while we're waiting for Prince to join back, because I see, okay, no, he's still here.
I'm back
Awesome.
here. I'm back here. I had a network glitch. I'm back here.
Okay, welcome. So your question, from your perspective around, as an entrepreneur in the fashion industry and founding member of GAFON, I hope I pronounced it properly, could you share how the geometric power plants or power projects has accelerated your business or businesses there, and can also accelerate Aba's industrial recovery? And what are the key steps to ensure that it's going to succeed? So we all know, the whole country, we celebrated the Aba power plant project. That's right, the geometric power projects. We all celebrated it, and for people who are on the ground, can you just share with us maybe if there's been benefits, and what else can be done to really deepen that impact?
Okay, thank you for the question. So ideally, I feel like the person that should have done justice to the question around the Aba power thing should have been an Aba power person. However, from an entrepreneur side of view, let me, this is not the marketing our state or the efforts that Aba power is trying to put, or the government is trying to put towards providing energy. However, okay, so let me speak from the futuristic part of the possible impact it could have when the promised reality of 24 hours lighting becomes a reality, because I figure that see some kind of infrastructural glitches that has prevented that promise to become a reality. I myself, for instance.
Okay, so just to clarify, because obviously I'm not on the ground, I'm in Abuja at the moment. So just to clarify, you don't experience 24 hours light yet.
So the thing is, for some places, there've been this highly improved supply of energy. Okay, so I tried on a personal note to have some conversations around why are we having these partial kind of distributions from where I stand, where I am, and where I operate from. I was having higher supply of energy before Abba Power took over than what I receive at the particular moment. But then I have clarities on the fact that, okay, there are a lot of infrastructural adjustment that has to be done. They're trying to put a few things in place. For some other places too, they're receiving higher supply of energy than what they used to have. But 24 hours is also some reality some people are speaking about. There was at a time that it was a thing that we all saw happen at a particular moment, but I discovered they also said they had some bottlenecks that couldn't make them sustain that level of supply. However, if we're discussing what could have been the effect, should we have such a steady supply when it's cost friendly? Again, I must mention, if we have such a steady supply and it's cost friendly, what could have been the effect to have on us as a producing population? I would say that, so from the treaty that Nigeria has eventually signed for all of the open trade stuff and all that, we would have been somewhat disadvantaged to play in that market if our production cost is more than an average compared to other regions who are going to be sharing the market with. Because if, for instance, it takes me XY amount of money to produce a unit of my product, and then someone who is in another country who has access to some other basic things like logistics is accessible, energy is accessible, they would have a cheaper cost of production compared to me. And then we're going to the same market to sell, for instance. So I feel that there's a role that could play, not just for internal production purposes also, but giving us advantage at the export level of the dealings. Because if we're talking about making export and making exports, when you make exports, it has to be at a competitive price that the international market can reason with you and buy from you, So playing within the.
So I love this point that you're making, and I really just want to dig deeper into it. You've made a very significant point around competitiveness. So it's not just about trying to export. There's competition actually in the world, and they have products of a certain standard and a certain price. And in fact, before you continue, let me just make it just a short story. I was in Morocco last year for the Atlantic Dialogue, and I met with thought leaders and people who talk about where the world is going, who advise the biggest banks in the world, the investors, and there was a question on industrialization. And me, I was the only one from Nigeria, obviously, in this forum, and I asked the question to say, because I was saying that my dream is for us to be able to industrialize like China and the rest of them. And these Oyibo white men, like two of them, they laughed at me when I asked the question. Like I was like a stupid person. They laughed at me and I was taken aback. And they told me, sorry, Nigeria, we can never industrialize as in to the level of China. And they said that the reason is because we cannot do it as effectively and as cost efficient as them. So we cannot do it to the level of the quality and how affordable it is. So basically, we cannot make Nigeria a hub for industrialization or manufacturing. And so that's why what you're saying is very, very important, because even if we produce something, are we going to be able to produce it at a cheap rate or a cheaper rate? Or how are we going to compete? So please go ahead. I just wanted to put that to just set the tone actually for what we're trying to do. It's not just about saying we have signed AFCFTA. Are we putting the frameworks in place, the structures, the infrastructure, to be able to make sure that our businesses here, our local businesses, can produce and be competitive? So go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I'm happy that I'm sharing this what's it called, this forum with my boss, Mr. Joseph, because conversations like this at a global scale has happened over and over again in different dimensions. Okay, so I'm also happy that in this meeting we have the special advisor to the governor. At the time when Governor T was coming on board, okay, because I'm also huge on tech. So at the tech community, we had they wrote to us for an engagement before the onboarding of governance, all the kind of, they did some community engagement with clusters. And we did mention on the tech aspect even that we wanted a cluster kind of thing to be able to ensure that we have a collective growth and be able to structure exactly what we need as a people and have access to easier, cheaper internet broadband, have access to 24 hours energy to boost up the productivity we can have in that sector. Now, the person who chaired that particular conversation had expressly said that clustering is not something they are looking at the moment. Now, taking it back to the fashion industry, where my boss was just talking about things like data collections and all of those and what are surrounding the industry. I feel that structuring the fashion industry in Abia, the garment and footwear industry, the garment and leather industry, in fact, it's just the footwear, belts and bags and all that. So the garment and leather industry, structuring it would be, and I'm happy that, in fact, let me even mention before I continue, I'm happy that the tax reform is becoming a thing, and I'm looking forward to it being actually reality, because I feel that it will force the hands of government to actually look deep into these things we are crying, that these are potentials. These are potentials that can be harnessed better, but because they are not seeing the true value that is hidden within the industry, they don't seem to make adequate provisions for structures that will allow this industry to flourish. So if a cluster is built for the garment and leather industry, for instance, we'll be able to have these data that we're looking at now. We'll be able to know what is coming out from these places, what quantity of stuffs are coming out from here. You can even place quality controls. You know, you find people having cheaper cost of production because a cluster will ensure that there's steady supply of power at an affordable rate.
And economies of scale.
We prevail. And then we talk about material sourcing, which is one of our major challenge, like our major challenge. I'm glad Obina is in this meeting also, because so at the time he started a campaign for us to revive the Abia textile industry. And I was part of that campaign at the time because the textile, we have huge on garments. In fact, I beg to say that maybe roughly around 60% of the business transaction that goes on in Abia is based on garments, textile, all of those. And then we don't have a single textile factory in the state. The one we used to have, a lot of stories around it.
There's no textile industry at the moment.
No, we don't have any.
Is it part of the plans for the governor? You know, I'm very happy. We were supposed to have like 1 or 2 commissioners in this meeting. We were supposed to also have the secretary to the principal secretary to the governor? And so we were supposed to have, so why I'm even happy is that we're going to have another dialogue, but it's good that we've harnessed this inputs from you people, because so that it's not just a surface conversation, you know, it's a conversation that, and that's why I want you all to have this in mind, that these recommendations are not just going to fall to the ground. We're going to make sure that the powers that be in the states have access to this information. That's number 1. Then number 2, at the federal level, I'll give you some information now. We're currently working on a creative economy policy, cultural policy, creative economic policy. And when we did a mapping, obviously, you know, a very huge part of the creative industry is the fashion, fashion leather goods industry. Yeah. The current minister, she's quite passionate. She wants to do a lot. A creative industry fund has been approved by the government, amongst other incentives. So, but my own thing, and I mentioned this in the beginning of the call, is that when a lot of things happen, I noticed that the Southeast, people in the Southeast don't benefit. I don't know if it's because there's an information lag, or if it's because of the politics of it, or whatever the case might be. But what we want to try to do as Africa Policy Conversations is to bridge that gap. You understand? To ensure that the voices from the South are heard on the national level, and then the pain points. Because for me, I don't see, if a government is trying to have some quick wins, this should be a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, and in extension to that, beyond just the textile mill we're talking about, so when you come to the fashion industry as a whole, I feel that where we where we have greatly lost it is the fact that we've not been able to segmentize on an industrial level, segmentize what we do. Okay, so I feel that if we are really going to get it right, if we have the government playing their role and we're going to get it right, there must be a need to segmentize on an industrial level where we have end-to-end side of these dealings. Like buttons, for instance, every single button that is used in Abia is imported. Every single trade that is used in Abia is imported. And these are huge sectors in the industry themselves. Okay, we're not even talking machines.
And what does it take to manufacture buttons? Because we talk about
So
dollar prices. If we're importing everything, of course, the dollar will keep going up.
Exactly. And then again, we are one of the highest manufacturers of what's it called now? Plastic waste. You get? And then we're not talking how do we possibly do these conversions and do that, which cannot happen on an individual level, except for some big money bags, guys, decide to do investment on those levels. But if we are saying like, look, we're passionate about this thing, we need a government hands in on this kind of things. Look at the areas government can leverage on private investors' portfolio to help us achieve these things, so that we can have these things sourced at minimal cost. Because I know that labor could be considerably cheap in Nigeria, which is the only thing that is probably still giving us a certain kind of an edge. But beyond labor, if other things are on the high side, the little gains you even have from cheap labor will still not make a difference. It wouldn't make a difference. So I feel that as you guys are doing this wonderful thing that you're doing, there should be, I like the fact that there's going to be collective suggestions of all the things discussed here, constructively passed to the people that should make the desired impact, and maybe elaborate conversations around them, and maybe more extended consultations around the real thing. Because one thing I discovered that happens a couple of times is governments separate themselves from the people that actually is in the core of the pain.
So let me ask you a question. Are there any forums where there's feedback, that people can give feedback, like the business community, the manufacturer? Is there any forum? Maybe Joseph can come in as well.
I think she should be the one answering, because he is my boss. He should know better. But I also must say that so there are a lot of struggles. When Child of Industry, when Obina championed startup, I was part of the move for Child of Industry when Obina did it. Part of the thing we discovered was it was just difficult. There's a lot of bureaucracy and bottlenecks in getting across the government to even say this is it. You do your surveys, you go to the grassroots, you find out what are the real things that need to be done to boost industrialization. But there's no adequate channel to communicate to government to say, look. And beyond that, even when you finally find your way to push up these white papers to now say, look at this and look at this are the things we think can happen for what we desire to become a reality, you don't see them make it to the light of the day. So I'll leave my boss to continue from there.
Yes. And as you continue, thank you so much, Prince. There's so much food for thoughts in everything you've said. And so our boss, because I'm going to also claim you as my boss as well. So our boss, as we discuss this issue around what government can do, I want you to think about maybe 2 recommendations, core recommendations that would alleviate the pain. We talked about energy. Yes, we know there's some things being done here and there. Are there any other things that you think can help, one, increase the quality of production, reduce the cost of production as well, or just generally, ease the work that you're doing as manufacturers? That's number 1. And then number 2, government is one thing, right? But there's also the critical mass. So coming together to say, okay, maybe government is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, but what can we do? I don't know if the special advisor to the governor is still here. I had promised him that I'll bring him back to the conversation. Is he still here? Please, if you're still here, okay, he has unmuted. Okay, so maybe you take that question for government, please, in order to say, are there avenues where the citizens, the manufacturers can air their grievances so that some of these pain points that they're feeling can be addressed? And then after you answer, I'll come back to Joseph to then ask the question around what can people like the diaspora, the people that want to invest, is there a way that they can solve some of these problems, like set up a textile mill, set up a manufacturing, bottom manufacturing or whatever components, and then even clustering. So I don't know if you are paying attention, he mentioned that they are suggested clustering to the government, but government said that they're not interested in creating some of those clusters around ICT, for instance. So please go ahead with your feedback.
Yeah, thank you. I wouldn't know when this suggestion were made, but I know from where I sit and my involvement in government, we are focused on having a convergence that where governance will be easy for us to handle. So I wouldn't know much about that, but I'm also heavy into tech operationally. So I've not come across any discussion around that. But going straight to your questions around how they can reach out to government to lay their complaint also or make their request. So the major thing is it depends on how organized they are also and how they are routing their complaints. I know that we have the Ministry of Digital Economy and SME in the past, and it was being driven by a vibrant young man. And I know most of the times, discussing, everyone will go for his committee discussing about support for SME, meeting different groups and clusters, and that. I know even when funding came some time ago, extending that funding to those SMEs. So there should actually be a group. I don't know how they operate, but I don't know how well they're also reaching to. Currently now, there's a Ministry for Industry and SME, which is driven by former Commissioner of Finance, and their focus is also trying to support SMEs. There's this BOI lending that I know that the state signed, loan the state signed, a single digit loan. But now for them to be able to access all some of this is either information or benefit. It depends on how they approach the government. But I know one of the first we I would have want them to do is to have their cluster, which is like a subgroup. From that cluster, they can now become part of the maybe the lower or the medium end of the man, which is the manufacturing section of Nigeria. Then can now dovetail into the Abia Chamber of Commerce, which is the vehicle that's supposed to lead them to what government wants to do around that area. You also have the Ministry of Trade and Commerce, Trade and Commerce, yeah. So which also doing a lot supporting the clusters around the leather, the shoe guys, and the rest of them. I know they have a lot of engagement with them. The last trade fair they went for in Lagos. They were part of the team. Sometime ago they went for Abuja. They're also part of that team. So I think that the cluster should actually organize themselves more because when government was starting, like he said earlier on, was when they approached. Government has its own government has its own plans, which is basically the manifesto which you want to use to run. So if you have gone to study the manifesto, you now realize that those things are in phases. Probably at the time when the government is about to set up, most people are not really part of the government, things are not really open. But now a lot of things are open, activities are happening after 16 months into government. I think what you guys need to do is to come up with that cluster, a convergence point where you can now reach government directly or through associations so that everything that you require to run in that space will be able to happen. Then things around ICT incubation also is on the top agenda of the government as I'm speaking to you now. But what I discovered is that because I based on what I do, I interface with this, but I've not seen a linking point around the ICT operators in the state. Everybody comes to you and says the same thing to you. But I want to see some partnership that will do something exceptional. We're talking about having an e-commerce scope. If you go to Lagos, you have the likes of Yaba left, and the rest of them. Those are the kind of things I want to see happen in other states. I came up with a concept called Abia Pay. Abia Pay is supposed to be driving commerce in other states, but I see people want to run something in silos. It's actually a government giving you a payment like an API that run a lot of things. Whether it's identity management. When Joseph was talking about identity management issues, it's not really a big deal getting identity, but are people willing to give their identity for the sake of what you want to use it for their own good? If I meet, for example, if I meet a set of people now, say about shoe manufacturers or change the shoe plaza, I say, give me a list of everybody in this market. Just want their name and their mobile number. They will never give it to you. They think you want to use it for tax issues. But they will also be collecting money from those guys for security or sanitation or their welfare or stuff like that. But when you say give government this thing, so the government will now know how much are we generating. That this also is talking about the issue of people not complying with revenue payment because they feel that people just come and collect money from them. They don't see anything around it. That has been the practice in the past. But if you look at it in the past, we're not even collecting much. We're also spending much to create avenue for business to grow. So if the clusters will begin to say, okay, we want to now every tech vendors in other states, every e-commerce vendor in other states, let's merge together and let's see how we can support some other clusters like the garment guys, the shoe guys, and what have you, the sculptor guys and the rest of them, even the artists, the photographers, So if we have that kind of hybrid cluster that run.
All right, thank you so much. So Joseph, I want to pull you in now. You've heard what
into the creative economy. It will be much as much as the rest of them. So we're also trying to create a financial inclusion process through a microfinance bank system. The government will make some announcements in a few moments. So that financial inclusion will drive this kind of payment system or the lending system what to produce, just like what is going on in the East Africa, the Kenya, and the rest of them. Want also localize those kind of concepts here, where people, if you are interested in doing business, will see what you can do. We're able to give you some retail funding and also track that, but it must be digital mature to be able to work with us because whatever we're giving you, you have to take it back to a digital process. Now, if you go to the cluster area and ask somebody, you need to make payment to government. Making payment, you need to do it via your phone. They will tell you, we don't throw this people low. Okay, go to stay at the bottom of the website. You don't want to do that. Go to the bank and make that same payment. They also, we don't throw this people. So at the end of the day, I'm asking myself in other states, what are we really going to do to achieve this after some time we have been in government? But the only thing that can happen is that it has to be a demand driven or the supply, because the consumers will now supply their request to us, and because we're ready with a lot of ideas or a lot of strategies forming a hybrid measure so that I can, for whatever you want, be able to say this is available for you for this kind of offer. But go
Thank
for
you.
convergence of thank you.
No, thank you so much for sharing, and even thank you for your patience, staying with us for this length of time. And I hear what you say, that there needs to be organization. People need to speak with one voice. It's not easy for government to be able to be dealing with people individually. Maybe in the initial stages, government was still trying to settle down and all that. But I want to bring in Joseph. So you've heard what he has to say. What's your feedback and your take on how businesses, at the grassroots level can really leverage on the opportunities that government has in store, but also leverage on the diaspora and other people who might want to come in and invest in them?
Okay, thank you. I think that first of all, I want to make a submission as to what I think the government needs to do in order for them to improve the business condition of manufacturers in Aba. Three things. First is access to finance. Access to finance is very important for business people because people need money to run their business. The last administration established Abia SME Microfinance Bank, which is situated at around the Ngwa Road area. What has happened to that bank? Why is it not operational?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm asking is because every day we're making these policy recommendations. So we need to know why some things work and why some things don't work. When the government established that microfinance bank, were people able to access funding? Did it ever work, or it just collapsed from the beginning?
It didn't work. It didn't work.
Do you know why?
I think that the reason is because there is no accountability.
Okay.
There is no transparency in the process. So this time, it is my suggestion to the government that they restructure and recapitalize that bank. And if possible,
that's a recommendation.
Domicile the funds with a trusted development financial institution. Okay. The other day, the government of Abia State and the Bank of Industry signed an MOU to draw counterpart funds together so that business people can access the funds. So the Abia people need to understand the channel through which these funds would be disbursed, the processes. That bank shouldn't just go away that way. It should be restructured. It should be recapitalized. That is on the one hand. Then, secondly, access to markets. The government needs to look into access to markets. There are a lot of new markets that have been built or were built over the years that has remained unused. Okay, like you have the Abia Mega Mall for how many years now and counting?
Why is this unused? Why? Because I saw that sometimes people don't want to move from old markets to new markets.
Good. So it's a problem which the government needs to provide a strategy, or they need to have a system that will make it work. See, moving people to new market is not a rocket science. Okay, it's not a rocket science. It's all about strategy. Let me tell you what happened a month ago. I was in Guangzhou in China about a month ago. I was waiting for someone to come pick me up for us to go to somewhere. Somebody was shouting, Guangdam New Market, Guangdam New Market, Guangdam New Market, free bus, Guangdam New Market. That guy is a Nigerian, but he was paid by the Chinese government to come and source for buyers at the popular Tonton Guangzhou market. The guy came there, they came with buses, and they were picking people, Guangdam New Market. Do you know that I entered that bus and I followed them? So many other people entered the bus. We went there, they took us to that place, and we saw a whole lot. It's a new market altogether. There were big manufacturers, big suppliers that has already taken their positions in that market. And people bought items. So it is not just about building new markets or building new clusters and telling people, okay, we are done.
So take your... I get that point. Because of time, I want us to be kind of succinct with our response. Okay, so I hear you, access to finance is one. Second one is the new markets, in terms of...
Access to markets.
Access to markets. Okay.
And finally, access to technology.
Okay, great points. And that access to technology, I want to use this opportunity to introduce two of our other panelists. They are supposed to speak on the third panel, but because of time, we want to try and wrap up this conversation in the next 15 minutes. So I want to bring them in, and then Lumelo has a question as well. So Lumelo is one of our members, Africa Policy Conversations South Africa branch. And he's also very knowledgeable about some of these issues. So Lumelo, I will take your question now so that I can bring in these panelists to discuss technology. Because this last point he mentioned, it ties across things like e-commerce, it ties across the tools that everyone needs to trade. So Lumelo, are you there? If you are, please unmute and ask your question.
Yes, I'm here, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
All right. All right. Greetings, everyone. I actually joined, I think 15 minutes late, but I did get the gist of everything in regards to public and private partnerships. The main question that I have is in regard to trade competition, which I heard being spoken about. So my question is, how do we ensure that we produce domestic goods whilst preventing competition from global markets? And I'm saying that my question is stemming from a challenge that you also had in South Africa, where, for instance, there was a factory that used to produce steel, which was used in one of the gold mines in Johannesburg, right? So after some time, the factory closed down because there was another market in China, rather, which was producing the good at a more cheaper price. So I think it's a general phenomenon in Africa where we have now these global markets that beat us in terms of price, if anything. So I wanted to know, how do we then ensure that we actually ensure that we produce goods domestically within our countries, whilst ensuring that these global competition is prohibited or prevented? Because, for instance, I know in countries like Japan, they have sort of like a protectionist economy type of model where they protect some of their industry to ensure that there are no international or global influences that intervene or that thwart their production. So that's mainly my question
Thank
in
you.
terms
That's an
of
excellent question.
competition.
So thank you, Lumelo. Like I mentioned, Lumelo is a member from South Africa. Like we said, Africa Policy Conversations were a Pan-African initiative. And before you answer that question and the reason why we're Pan-African, I mentioned when I was in Morocco and I was laughed at when I talked about industrialization in Africa. But one of the biggest ways that we can actually win in this race of industrialization is if we look at Africa as one trading bloc. That's when the numbers start to make sense. 1.something billion people, the economies of scale. So if we do it collectively, because remember, China alone is 1.something billion. India is also 1.something billion. So that's why even we as businesses must think about how can we make this regional? How can we make this a Pan-African conversation? So I'll bring in Joseph now. Joseph and Prince, please respond to Lumelo's question. How can we ensure that we're producing here and the likes of the Chinas, because it's already happening? That's why a lot of our industries are shutting down. So what is your perspective of people who are manufacturers on the ground? Joseph, please go ahead. You're muted.
Okay. I think that we need to invest in training. We need to invest in training MSMEs, training the manufacturers, because quite a lot of manufacturers in the fashion space, especially in Abia, are not lettered. Are you with me? They are not, most of them are less educated. And that explains the reason why
these trainings, just to have some context, we talked about the skill acquisition and all that. So how can these trainings be designed? Is it private sector led? Is it public sector led? And because they are not educated, they're not lettered, like you said, how can we ensure that we are doing it in a way that they can learn?
Yes, it has to be private sector driven, because you cannot be so confident about governments and their bureaucracies. So I think that it should be a private sector-led initiative to design a system that can work for people who are less educated. Okay. Then again, connecting it to technology and e-commerce that we earlier talked about. E-commerce adoption, technology adoption will not be done on its own. People will drive it. Okay. It is people that will drive this initiative. So in my opinion, I think that we need to start working on a program that will be able to attach experts to factories, to manufacturers. Okay? We need to start attaching experts, tech experts to manufacturers. Okay? People whose jobs will be to drive this technology initiative. For example, you can assign a virtual assistant or someone to a factory and tell him your job is to be here. Make sure that these guys' products are always available online. Whatever they produce, put it online. Be consistent about doing this and continue to do it. Once this is done, they should be able to have a tech partner. Tech partnership is important for us to drive.
So who is providing
technology.
Who is providing those people now? The people who will be there putting the things online. Who is going to provide those manpower? The interns or the who is providing?
Fine. That should be part of the system design of whatever program that we are introducing. Because if you leave it for the manufacturer to employ somebody to do that, he may not.
Okay.
Because he may not even know the value of such an exercise. Okay? So it is you and I that knows that this exercise will yield results. Okay. So
there are two things that I want to say, and I really want to bring in Igwe into this conversation because of time. So please, Joseph, just hold your thoughts. There are two things I want to commit to. One is that whatever funding is available nationally, if Joseph and Prince and other people on this call are able to galvanize your ecosystem, I can try to be a voice. We as African Policy Conversations can be a voice for you to advocate for funding from either Bank of Industry, from the Creative Economy Development Fund, to ensure that by God's grace, this time next year, we're already talking about money being assessed for whatever it is. Because I believe that from talk needs to lead to action. So that's the first one. Then the second one about getting people online. There's one of our partners or one of the people we've had on our forum before. They have a platform actually where they're helping businesses to get online. Barbers, hairdressers, and they're rolling this out in different states in the Southwest. I don't know if they've done anything in the Southeast. I'm willing to actually bring them, partner with them, so that when we're having our town hall in-person event, they can actually have a desk there where they're enrolling people so that people can start, because these things that we're talking about is not rocket science. There are solutions out there, but it's just how are we able to get those solutions to people that need it. So as we're talking about technology, let me introduce, because I really want us to wrap up this conversation in the next 10 minutes or so, because we really taking a lot of time. So Igwe Uguru, he's been on the call. He's the visionary co-founder of RAD5 Tech Hub and a passionate advocate for local problem solving in his community, Abia, through technology, entrepreneurship, and startup development. He is the driving force behind the Digital Abia movement, a 10-year-old initiative aimed at transforming 100,000 non-tech MSMEs in Abia into digital savvy businesses by 2035. The ambitious project is supported by the European Union, GIZ, and so, let's look at this. This is already happening, right? So Igwe has completed extensive training in entrepreneurship and startup development from prestigious institutions such as the Global Entrepreneurship Network, Alibaba Business School, and the African Leadership University. His leadership and impact were recognized globally when he was named one of the 100 global innovation leaders at the Global Entrepreneurship World Cup in 2021. So please, Igwe, unmute yourself, say hello to us. Your CV, your profile is very impressive. Would like to hear from you. So please, I don't know if you're there, please unmute and let's hear from you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I've been here in this conversation, listening to the whole conversation. I was supposed to be one of the panelists for the earlier sections, but I wasn't available. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then we also have Ebere Chiemela. I'm Igbo. I don't know why I'm, but yes, Southeast Regional Coordinator for the Young African Leadership Initiative. Ebele, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening, everyone.
Awesome. It's so good to hear from you. So let's just pull you both into the conversation because we're talking about technology. I hope I didn't miss anyone. Is there anybody else that's supposed to be on? This issue of digitization. You heard Joseph, he just mentioned that you don't expect the manufacturer to employ somebody specific to start uploading things here and there. What is your take on some of his recommendations, please?
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Are you coming on video or you're not able to?
Okay, I just got home and okay, let me see. Just got home. Okay. All right. All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Obinna, for driving this conversation and bringing us together. So I will say this: what Mr. Joseph said is what it should be. I've worked with him in the past when we were doing a project, and I will tell you that's what it is. Earlier this year, I designed a framework called Digital Abia Framework, shared it with Abia state government. They did not buy into it. They bought into it, but probably one or two things.
Okay, did they say why? Let's just, because, you know, was there any particular reason for not buying into it?
I wouldn't blame the government. I won't blame the government because it's kind of, one is the government should begin to believe in his people, right? In the people. So you see, the first question the commissioner asks is, can you do this thing? Do you have the capacity? Do you have what it takes? So what happened was that we moved on and had conversation with European Union and GIZ, German Corporation, sold the framework to them, how we want to support 100,000 MSMEs in our community, Abba. And that was how they came on board to fund this project, which we are kicking off 2025. And we have 4 implementation strategies. One of them is what Mr. Joseph talked about. I've already spoken with him that we need to sit and talk about how to implement this, right?
I love that.
One of them is this. We are deploying digitalization experts and consultants to MSMEs directly to them. So we raised the fund to tell these international organizations to say, for us to solve this, the MSMEs, the manufacturing guys will never do this on their own. We need to deploy people to them. And we are raising funds, going to train these guys. Very soon, we are going to make call for applications. We're supposed to get 50 young persons to do this, but we don't have that fund yet. What we have currently is for 10 persons we are training. And these guys are going to be matched to 6 factories, MSMEs per person, to support them in their digitalization process. Digital transformation is not a one-off thing. It is a continuous process, a continuous act and process. So we need to deploy these guys to help them. So that is one of the implementation strategies deployed in the 18 documents that we shared with these international organizations on how to digitize MSMEs, right? So that is what we believe that will work, right? That is what we believe. And I will say this, I worked with Mr. Joseph some years ago on also MSMEs in Abia. We didn't have the fund, right? We didn't have the support, we didn't have the fund.
Okay.
And what happened was that the government were not interested. The only government that was interested was Ebonyi State government. And Ebonyi State government gave us 10 years contract to come and support their MSMEs, but they were not providing us any fund. We had a partner who was supposed to help us to achieve that, but they pulled out for some reason, so we could not continue that project.
So can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Please,
because I know a lot about funding, and sometimes why people don't fund things is that they say our businesses. In fact, most times when I'm on global platforms or even national platforms and I say, oh, our SMEs, we need access to capital. Whenever I mention access to capital, especially when I'm with people that have capital, it's okay, it's Nigerian factor, don't worry. it's part of the challenges we're talking about. So I see you taking the light where you are. So it's okay.
Yeah, I was about going to say the 24-hour supply. Yeah, but it has improved.
Okay. So thank you for that. But the issue of this access to funding, and I have to sort of bring in this perspective. Most funds I know, when I speak to the global finance institutions, the development finance institutions, the banks, they will tell you that our businesses are not investment ready. They say we don't have bankable businesses. And now the issue of clustering or aggregating then comes up. Sometimes they'll say, okay, can you guys pull together? And then what is the corporate governance? Because we talked about the creative industry. In the past, for instance, when the Goodluck Jonathan, wanted to give funding to the creative industry, movie industry, the story is that the money that they gave is just a few people, a few of those big weights at the top that chopped the money and didn't get down. So usually we talk about trust, but that trust deficit is not only within government and listen, there's also how can the ecosystem come together and create a governance framework for themselves that is accountable. That if you come together as a block or as a cluster and money is given, how do we ensure accountability? So I want you to just come in there and maybe we'll take feedback from Joseph and also from Abia as well.
Okay, so what I'm going to say quickly about that is that most times it's easy to point fingers at the government, right? I was part of the conversations when we were talking about before the Alice Oti government came on board. We had a meeting with them within the tech space. And the fact is that it's not really that the government, but we have personal interest, okay? So personal interest is also a key factor, not just the government. I'll give you an instance. Now we are talking about cluster for ICT. Okay, I'm already a big player in the ICT space. So why do you want to bring cluster? If you bring cluster, you are going to democratize or kind of make the power to become almost equal and democratize opportunity, and power will become almost equal to everyone. So the people who lead can say, no, cluster is not the best idea.
You're so right.
Let everybody know.
We call them gatekeepers. Go ahead.
So I'm just saying this because most times we can say the government, but truly everything is not just about the government. Then you talked about the trust issue. I totally agree with you, totally, 100%. And I'll give you reasons. We need people who have the integrity. Because when these funds come, like when you see international funds come to you, honestly speaking, you don't get 1 naira out of it as the person driving it. That is what it is. You will not get 1 naira because what you are saying is, this is what I want to implement, and everything, you are not saying I want money. So the only option for you to make money is for you to divert certain things and then take money. So we need individuals who have the integrity. And I totally agree with you. In 2017, 2014, we started a project, which is Google Developers Group, Abia, where Google funded us to do projects. And in 2017, we brought in over 1,000 young persons in Abia to organize a program we call DevFest. And after that project, Google funded another project altogether, right? Because that project, Google does it across the globe. And the Abia project was one of them that was showcased on the global, at their global audience, right? Now, what happened was 2 years later, I think 2019, yeah, they brought the light again. So 2019, Google funded a project, right, which was not connected to us. One of the Google Nigerian guys shared with us and said, the reason why Google funded this project was because of the successful delivery of the project we did. And that is why they said, if you guys can do this in Abia, that means we have people in Abia with integrity that can deliver. And that was what motivated them to do this. So we need the right leaders. And I will say this, we need the right leaders. 2 things I will say, and I will summarize. government should begin to believe in her people. Reason being that if I talk to the government, you need to see a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, before you can listen to me, right? That's what the government need to see. Perception is reality. If I drop a Lamborghini now, government will listen to me. There are young people who have what it takes. Government should begin to listen to them. And I know I used to be that person. Government started listening to me when they begin to see certain things. That is when they begin to listen to me. But I'm saying government should learn how to listen to certain persons. Probably they don't have Lamborghini yet, right? Government should begin to listen to them because probably they have what it takes to unlock that ecosystem or economy that they are looking for. So I wouldn't want to say much. I think I've said a lot.
I love
wish
it.
and I want our community to become, you might not understand the struggle we have had over the past, but we have been here and we are consistent in doing what we are doing to see that Abia becomes great.
I love it. Thank you, Igwe. Thank you so much for the work you do. Thank you for your sincerity of purpose. Thank you for your consistency. For each and every one of you that have been on the call, I know people have been joining and leaving. It's actually encouraging for me as someone who is from the Southeast to know that we have this wealth of knowledge and industry and, you know, just the quality of people. And please do not give up. Keep doing what you're doing because I always say we cannot look at point fingers, okay, leaders. We are our own leaders. We are leaders in our own spheres of influence. So we are the ones that will actually bring the change, especially sustainable change. I want to bring in Ebere because our time is fast spent. Ebere, you've listened to the conversation so far. I would really like to hear your perspectives and maybe one or two policy recommendations you have for both governments and for your own ecosystem as well.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. So I've listened to every speaker here and they've made valid points, and I think I need to state one thing, which is also a statement of facts. When it comes to SMEs and especially in Abia, it might be surprising to note that when you look at the top 10 cities with largest SME clusters, Abia is not on the top 5. It might be surprising, but that's just the fact. And that shows that a lot of SMEs in Abia operate not under the legal means, but then they are just operating, they are not registered. They don't have license of registration. They don't have at least the least CS registration. I handled a project sometime around July to August of this year, where we had entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs called the Southeast SME Bootcamp. We had hundreds of SME owners around Abia, Anambra, and it's surprising to see that a lot of SMEs are not registered, because part of the requirements is that they should be registered before they get funded, but a whole lot of them are not registered. So which goes to portray the fact that it is not just a government issue, but then we have a system. We have a lot of issues that we need to deal with from the grassroots to ensure that these businesses are properly registered and legally represented in the statement of affairs. Because if you are not registered, the government cannot cater for you. Government cannot provide resources to meet your demands. So I think it also tells us that we need to go back to the clusters and let them know that they need to be legally represented. They need to be legally represented. It is very important that they need to do that. Then coming back to Abia State generally, let me just talk briefly around bridging rural to upward migration, especially within the tech and agricultural space. Migration is something that happens naturally. It happens, so we can't even control it. But then we need to reduce the migration between Abia to other cities. We've had a lot of tech talents. Mr. Wick will agree with me. We have a lot of tech talents every year that will push from Abia to other cities, especially to Lagos, Abuja, everyone in diaspora, and we keep losing. These guys are doing so well wherever they are, which shows that in terms of training, the trainings are there, but then we don't have the resources to support these talents here in town. So what do we do to support these talents? we've talked about, I know in a way that this current government is trying to work on a data center and a lot of things to support most innovations and tech hubs here in Aba, but it is still an idea that I'm working on. They've not really launched it, so we'll just hold on and watch them launch these things before we know how best to criticize them. But then it's a step in the right direction. Then also for when you look at I'll let's keep asking this question. We do not have industries. How many industries do we have in Abia? Little or none. Have we asked ourselves why a lot of industries are located between Lagos and Ogun State? Yeah, it's cause for serious concerns, sincerely. We have local, we have raw material, we have local materials in, sorry?
No, I was just gonna say, do you want us to answer why they're in Lagos and Ogun State, or is just a rhetoric question?
It's just a rhetorical question because I believe we all know though. We all know.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah. So we have raw materials here in Abia State. When you go down to Abia North, where my brother Ezechikamnayo comes from, there are a lot of cashew plantations there. What happens when we institute industries that would take up these raw materials and turn them into finished products? Must we export all these items? No. So these are some of the things that I think we need to do. Industrialize some of our communities. That way we are reducing the rural to urban migration that we are currently experiencing in Abia State across both agricultural sector and also across the tech space. We need to set up a lot of structures in place to ensure that our young persons do not leave Abia State, because it might get to the point where we have a brain drain within this location and we don't really pray for such. Some of us are tired, but then we can't leave because we are changed leaders and agents in Abia State. Thank you so much.
I love what you just said, that, you know, some of us are change agents and change leaders, so we cannot leave. I get the question all the time. People ask me, why am I still in Nigeria? I'm also a product of reverse Japa. I used to live in the UK. I did my undergrad in the UK, but I knew once I finished my last exams that I was coming back to Nigeria. I didn't even bother trying to work in the UK or stay in the UK, because I always say nations need builders. The reason why the US is where it is right now is because you have entrepreneurs. You have the likes of the Facebooks, the Bill Gates, the JP Morgans, the Ford Foundations, Rockefeller, even the past ones that said, you know what, we want to industrialize, we want to manufacture, we want to make like now that Donald Trump says, make America great again, you know. But the point is, you have to have that sense of national pride, right? And have that sense that I'm not going to go to where everything has already been done. People died. People were sweating to put their own societies in order. We just want to go to a place that is ready-made. We don't want to fight for our own place and work on our own place. So I really, really commend everyone who has been on this call, because you all are nation builders. You all are innovators, and you all are making a difference. And we must continue to, you know, acknowledge one another and see ways that we can support one another. So I don't know if we have Ezindu on the call. I don't know if he was meant to be part of this panel, but okay, Ezindu is here. I want to take feedback from you. And okay, Igwe has his hand up. I want us to take 3 questions before we wrap up. 3 questions on the floor. I know that most people, you know, we are fast spent for time. We're meant to have finished this conversation about 30 minutes ago. But Ezindu, are you able to contribute, or should we take the questions? Okay, I'm told that we didn't introduce Ezindu again, so we should just go ahead. So Lumelo has his hand up, and I know Igwe wants to speak. So Lumelo, go ahead. And I would have loved to take a question from somebody who hasn't spoken before. So do you have any questions, maybe in the comment section? But I would give Lumelo an opportunity to ask his question, and then Igwe, you can comment.
Thank you once again for noting me, ma'am. I wanted to ask, the speaker mentioned something about, you also mentioned that remaining and building places where we're coming from. You also mentioned something that that you were in the UK, and then you went back to Nigeria because you believe that that's what nation building is about. You ought to like acquire the skills wherever we acquire them, and then go back to actually develop where we're coming from. Like I said, I'm gonna try and contextualize things. I know what's happening in Nigeria, but I'm also gonna try and contextualize things to South Africa as well, just so that you also have a picture of what's happening. So in South Africa, I'm from a very underdeveloped province, which is the Eastern Cape. It's one province that has produced a lot of people, like in terms of like leaders in South Africa, even historically so, but it remains one of the most poverty-stricken and most underdeveloped provinces in the country because of corruption and all of those things. Hence, you'll find that most people tend to migrate to urban areas such as Johannesburg, Cape Town, etc. Like how that you guys know that those are the most urbanized areas in South Africa. And I think the speaker also mentioned that most of the industries are located in Lagos or in the most affluent provinces or states rather, as compared to Abia and other areas which are underdeveloped. And it's the same phenomenon even in our country, where you'll find that most industries are actually located in Joburg. Hence, you'll find that most young people, or even those people who are professionals in different industries, actually want to migrate to areas that are more industrialized with more opportunities. So how do we then remain in these underdeveloped? Because how do we remain in these underdeveloped areas that we are from if the government doesn't really show any intent to actually give the necessary development? Because yes, you also mentioned that we always want to go to places that are already developed and built, and we just go there and not to actually build a name for ourselves more than making an impact in those societies, whereas we can be more we can be more impactful in the societies that we come from that are underdeveloped, like you did, Miss Chino, by coming from the UK, coming back to Nigeria, which is less developed than the UK. But then how do we ensure that we remain in these places, ensure that we impact the necessary change and not go to places that are already industrialized? Because it becomes a very difficult thing
Okay,
to
Lumelo,
go to.
I get your point. And your
Yes,
point
okay, all right.
your point is basically, we can't just stay in a place that doesn't have prospects. We need to go,
Yes.
but I don't want to be the one to respond. I'll respond after you. But I don't know if Igwe, you had a comment, your hand was up. I don't know if you want to attempt the question. Although I think the question was more targeted to a bearer, but go ahead with attempting the question and then your own comment that you wanted to make initially.
All right, thank you so much. So my comment is also related to what he said. One, I want to encourage everyone who are kind of doing a lot for our community and our region. I'm one of the persons who is kind of exporting talent. Last week, I exported through my organization about 10 young persons to work with an Indian company, right? I'm not excited about it. Like I'm excited about it, but I have a mixed feeling about it. I want these guys to stay here to support, but I don't have an option. We have 10 of them currently working with an Indian company. One recently started working with a US-based company. And I will also say this, I don't have all the resources to go and do media and go and say what we are doing, the impact we are making, right? So most times people don't know this because media is expensive, okay? I also heard a lot of persons talk about the failure of tech programs and all that. The question is, what kind of program are you designing? Are you designing a program that is effective, right? So what kind of program are you designing? So you could I've seen we have taken someone from one level of kind of computer, the person is computer kind of illiterate, and take the person to the point where the person gets global opportunities. So our pain, we have to change our mission to see how we can mitigate talent migration, because it's a pain. And that was one of the reasons why we have to speak with some of these international partners, show them the proof of these people who we have exported. Precious is currently in UK, and she's a talent from here. She was studying at ABSU. She came for internship at our place. She finished, and later the UK talents called her and they have taken her. We don't have an option. But look at some of the benefits we have gotten from there. I wrote something called the village model. Most of them that have traveled are now coming to finance some of the work we do here. We have seen some of them send $500,000 to say, support other young persons because this system has helped us, right? We have also seen a young guy who sent 1.2 million to say, I want you to support other young persons because this system has helped me, right? We have also seen some persons who travel abroad, right? Or who go to Lagos. Majority of them are in Lagos. They go to Lagos and they take someone from here, just like the apprenticeship Iba boy stuff. They take someone from here and say, come and stay with me in Lagos for a while until you get a job because they have been part of an ecosystem. And it is not something we are proud of it, but we are not so excited about it. So what I'm trying to say is this: people will leave. There are benefits that will get out from it, no doubt. Some of them who are already abroad, we are asking them, what is the current trend in AI? What is happening? What are the best practices? They are sharing with us because they are getting ahead of us and sharing with us so we can become more better. So it is not a total loss when we have these people move out, but we also want to retain them so that we can kind of strengthen our local economy. And the only way we can do that is to also bring attraction to our own place, things like infrastructure and a whole lot of other things. So I want to encourage us to continue to do what we do, but I also want to say, how can we retain these guys? The only way we can retain these guys is to keep the food here. Not everyone will want to sacrifice like I did to stay here. I've gotten opportunities for me to leave Abia. I've got people who have said you are stupid, you don't have sense. I've had people who have given up on me because I stayed back in Abia. When some people are saying, come and take, this is an opportunity you have to take, right? So what do we need to do? The only way is to bring food to this place. When there is food, which is the attraction, people will stay. For example, most of these guys we have trained, we want to keep them. That is why we are speaking to international partners to help us. We want to keep these people to support our local economy. And that is why we need you to provide us this fund. So for the next 1 year for this project, we already have money to pay these guys for them not to go to Lagos. And that's the only way they can stay, right? And when they stay back, they can support these MSMEs. These MSMEs, most of them cannot afford to do what pay you for this thing because they don't understand what you're saying. Until you drive mindset change, then they can begin to see the impact, then they can begin to pay back for that. So that is what I think we can do to help mitigate talent migration, but talent will keep moving. Let's take it in good faith and also be the right leader, treat people well. When you treat people well, they will go back and they will come back and they will support what you are doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Like I say, talent is mobile and there's a global race for talent. The same talents people want in India, same talents in America. And unfortunately, the brain drain, because it's the countries that have the best talents, the best brains, the best innovators, they're the ones who are able to create the right solutions, technology advancements. They're the ones that are able to get the investments and they grow richer. And then the countries that don't have, get poorer. So I must commend you all once again for what you do for the ecosystem of your local communities. Like we say, nations need builders, states need builders, communities need builders, and we need people to, and just to answer your question, Lumelo, I think for me, it's a calling. We've also faced that challenge here as well, because the Japa syndrome is affecting every sector, even the legal industry and otherwise. So it's for everyone to decide what lane they are meant to be on. Are they supposed to stay and build, or are they meant to leave? Because even when you leave, like you mentioned, there's also benefits. In fact, some of our community members support the work that we do here, even at Africa Policy Conversations and the likes. And that's why we've had events in the US, in the UK, in other parts of the world. So what is important is even when you leave, don't forget home. When you leave, still see how you can plug back. So Lumelo, for you, I'm not going to stop you to say, oh, don't leave the region where you're in the Eastern Cape to go to Johannesburg. Sometimes in life, you might actually need to maybe go, learn, acquire skill sets, and then you can, use that to channel back to, your local community. So because of time, we will need to draw a curtain to the conversation. But before we do that, I want to bring a daughter of the soil, because by marriage, she's actually from Abia State. She's one of the co-founders of Africa Policy Conversations, and she's married to a son of the soil. And so I'll let her give the closing remarks and any takeaways that she has from this conversation. So over to you, Uchechi. Her name is Uchechi Mbauzuku. So over to you.
Thank you, Chine. Thank you so much. And like you rightly said, I'm a daughter of the soil by marriage. Out of all the conversations we've had, Chine has mentioned that we've had series of conversations in the US, we have in the UK, even twice this year. And we've just been going around having these conversations, and as well as the grassroots as well. We've had grassroots engagements, and this particular conversation is very, 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 very dear to my heart because it's Abia State, and I'm very, very invested in the growth and development of Abia State. One time somebody showed me a picture of, I think it was the Society of Evil Professionals, and they showed like a futuristic view, like a view of some southeastern pictures of like Abia in 2030, or like those kinds of things. So, and I was really, really inspired by that. I was like, oh wow, maybe one day it will actually happen. And like Chineye said, we need a critical mass to make it happen. When, yes, there are people that need to go to be able to bring in the investments, they need to bring in the connections and all these things that we need to make the place a better place. There are people that will never go anywhere, no matter how bad things are, and that forms part of the critical mass. The critical mass, they don't all have to be on ground. Some people have to also send money or send, whatever it is, to sustain the people on the ground. I want to thank everyone for making our time to join this series. It's been a series. We had one in Lagos. This is the one in Abia. We're very, very, very invested in doing more grassroots engagements, more things in the subnational levels, because we know that politics is local. All these things are local. We need to make sure we've always done things on the local level, but we want to thank everyone for making our time to join us. We are the Africa Policy Conversations. Like Chine earlier mentioned, we're spread across 3 continents, 20 countries. We have members, and this is a volunteer-led organization. We haven't gotten any kind of official funding yet. We're 5 years old, like going on 6 years. And we have volunteers, a team of volunteers across, and we're welcoming new members. For those that are interested in joining us from Abia, from wherever you are across the world, you're welcome to join us. Go on our website at theafpc.org. Make sure you follow us on our social media handles. On Twitter, or X, we're Let's Talk Policy _. On Instagram is the Africa Policy Conversations, as well as Facebook and LinkedIn. So thank you all for making our time. Like I said, once again, make sure you join us. We're welcoming new members. So we also have a form that you can fill to, and let us know if you want to be part of the AFPC. That being said, thank you guys, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, and thank you so much, Obinna, for putting this together. Yes. Pretty much reaching out to all the contacts. Thank you to our volunteers. I don't know if all of them are on the call. Thank you for the speakers, for sharing from your wealth of knowledge. Thank you for the representatives from governments. Like we said, it's not going to be a one-off conversation. We want to be able to see tangible outcomes. We want to be able to look back in a year, in 2 years, to say we've been able to unlock financing. We've been able to create new policies and new incentives, and those policies are actually being implemented, and people in the grassroots can actually feel it. So we want this to be a long game. It's not a short game, it's a long game. So thank you to each and every one of you, our participants, those who joined the call. Thank you, Heartstrop, all the people who commented in the chat section. We appreciate you all, and take care and have a lovely evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Nice day. Bye, y'all.